Anybody want to speak? Let me know and I'll bring them up. Ask questions. Brian, go ahead. You can start.
Yeah, Rick, if you want, I've got a few questions if we ever have any downtime. One,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
what are your thoughts on the new whistleblower, Matthew Brown?
Uh, I haven't met, I haven't spoken to anybody that knows him. We've dangled his name out there within the intelligence community, and we're waiting for somebody to respond back to us to give us some information about him. But as of today, I don't know anything more about him. So we'll have to wait.
Yeah.
So soon I hear something, I'll let you know. I'll let everybody know.
Okay, sounds good. Speaking of Washington, anything new on the Senate side of things? Um,
Well, they're going to have a committee meeting in the SCIF on the I think it's the 14th. Let me get that date right here. Yeah, 14th, May 14th, which is next, I believe next Wednesday. Yeah, next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow. So they're going to formulate something regarding what they want to do as far as into the very near future, who they want to bring up, and we're pushing for some real whistleblowers who haven't been and their names haven't been out there yet. So we'll see if they'll allow those whistleblowers to come up and speak.
yeah, that would be great. Mike Herrera just made a post on Twitter a little while ago, and you could tell he's a little bit fed up. And I think we've all gotten to that point at one time or another. And he's saying, we've got the people there, bring us up. So he's getting pretty frustrated.
Yeah, he's yeah, I saw that space. I mean, that posting on X. Listen to him. Yeah, and there's many out there that feel the exact same way. So we just hope that something can come up at the Senate or the House. I don't care who it is, as long as somebody can facilitate a hearing, a legitimate hearing, where we can listen to the real stories of these whistleblowers, and not get bits and pieces of information that doesn't make any sense. If they can't tell their entire story, it's not going to satisfy us out there that want full disclosure. So we hope that they can facilitate that.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems with the formal hearings is, you'll have the chairman and the ranking member get 5 minutes, and then each individual speaker gets a 5 minute intro, and then they answer questions. With each member getting 5 minutes of questioning. Y- Rick, you can barely explain your story in about 40 or 50 X spaces a year, going 3 hours a pop. Let alone having some of these guys try to do it in 5 minutes is extremely difficult. Now, I know they can submit, obviously, a written statements that expand on it, but yeah, it's got to be some different rules.
Well, I agree, because even if they do submit uh, a written response, uh, the public doesn't see that. The Senate or the House member will see it, and then they'll have to give it to their security officials to make sure there's nothing classified in there, or they have to take out whatever is classified in there. And if it is eventually released to the public, and the only ones I ever remember was Grush's and Elizondo's, it didn't say anything. It didn't say that. It was probably almost less than what they testified to. So it doesn't satisfy us. It doesn't satisfy the people out there want to know disclosure, the full disclosure. So that just doesn't work. And they're going to have to give. And I agree with you. They have to give more time than 5 minutes to respond to questions posed by the senators or the House members. Yeah, the floor is open. If you want to be a speaker, we have plenty of room up here.
Well, the theorists like to go out and say that that's what you described, the 5 minutes versus the 3 hours or whatever is part of the control matrix. In other words, it seems to me like there's I mean, it's obvious, I'm sure, to a lot of people that there's some sort of system, and who controls the system, I don't know, but that knows that if, as long as the American public or whoever is only going to get 5 minutes of a 3-hour story, we can live with that. There, you know what I mean? It's like, how do we break through from that? Always seems to be the problem. We can never get enough information out there to really have an impact.
Yeah, I agree. And then the bits and pieces that we get, we can't be guaranteed that what we're hearing is factual. You bring up a good point. Who's controlling the release of information? There's a group out there that is. I can guarantee you that there is. Who are they? The MJ12. Are they MJ12? Where did they come from? Who makes up the MJ12? What's their names today? Is it the Zodiac or Zenith group, or whatever group? But definitely there is another entity that controls the subject matter. And
So that's probably an international entity at this point. It's not just United States based individuals.
No, I think you're right. I think there's an element there that is foreign. There's been a lot of names mentioned out there that could very well be part of the group, and they would be, and they're probably a foreign entity. Maybe more than one person, not necessarily a head of state from one of the key countries. It could be somebody that we wouldn't know anything about, or wouldn't know his name if we heard it. But the government does utilize some kind of operational working group, whether it's MJ12 or Zenith, whatever, which controls all UFO information. There are other words to describe this group, such as Zodiac, we've heard before, Doppler 12, the Zenith Pack. But this group is a predecessor of Magic or MJ12 working group. Who are they? Are they a private group? Are they a quasi-private group? Do they contain both government, civilians, and military personnel, or world leaders? I don't know. I wish I did know. That's the biggest
Okay, but
question
Rick,
I always have.
originally though, half of them were scientists. I mean, as far as I remember, that, and then it appeared to me in the beginning, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm again, it looked like it was pretty much all United States citizens. Or am I mistaken there? Was there anybody from the original MJ12 that was not a United States citizen? And was it, yes, 6 scientists and 6 non-scientists? Is that the right formula, or what do you think?
Yeah, there were scientists. There were also secretaries of Department of the Cabinet, the Truman's cabinet. Back when NJ-12 was formed by Truman, he picked the most trusted people for those positions, and some of them were in fact scientists, and some of them were within his cabinet. But he had to have scientists because back in those days, even though we had Grudge and Project Blue Book, we didn't understand the technology. We didn't understand what the U.S. government was seeing in the air, and so therefore we had to recruit these scientists and other military leaders to try to understand the technology, the foreign technology, or the extraterrestrial technology that we're seeing. So yes, there were scientists in there.
It's interesting because you imagine being a scientist in the 40s or 50s, whatever, and here you are, tasked with, studying biologics. Well, that's the word they like to use, and NHI technology, whether, however it is, the craft came to them. Yeah, and what a task to try to figure that out. But what's amazing is and I think you've said this before, is that that they did get help with that. In other words, so it wasn't like we had to just figure it out on our own. We did get some assistance. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, we did. We had EBA 1. He was found in the Corona crash. He lived in captivity from 47 to 52. I'm sure, and I don't have any personal information. I just know what I've read and what others have said, especially Linda Howell, who actually interviewed the EBA 1's handling agent in 1980. They provided us, EBA provided us with the technology from his particular species. Now, the problem we had was, this is in the late 40s. We had just developed an atomic bomb. We dropped 2 of them and used them in combat. And the Los Alamos laboratory was still in existence. They've advanced the research from an atomic or fusion to a fission bomb, and which is a hydrogen bomb. And so our technology in that arena was growing, but we didn't understand extraterrestrial technology. And here we have an extraterrestrial being who has a plethora of knowledge about the universe, about his technology, space travel, that we can't understand. Why can't we understand it? Because nothing that he had or was telling us made any sense, because we don't understand. We didn't understand their technology. We didn't understand their math. We didn't understand their science. So according to people around back then or knew about it, we had to go back to first grade and learn their technology. And fortunately, EBA had a very high IQ. Some say between 180 and 200, and then some others have said 300. So he was able to grasp our science and math quickly. And so he was trying to compare what he knew about our technology to what he was trying to tell us about their technology. And that was in the early days. We did manage to learn a lot of things from him. We had an energy device. We had a communications device. And so we did learn. And eventually, over years, we were finding other crash sites, the Kingman, and many other crash sites where we attained technologies. But the complexity of that was, wow, like the Kingman crash, it wasn't an even crash. craft. It was a different species, different technologies. Some say J-Rod. So now we have a different technology that's not anywhere near the same as the even technology. So that made it so complex to try to understand these different technologies. And then, so we did have Eagle 1 and we did have J-Rod, who stayed in Area 51 for a number of years. I don't know how many. I was never fully briefed into that. But I knew he was there, and I'm sure he helped us understand his particular species technology.
Real quick, I just want to do a quick plug. Brian Jackson's a listener and good friend of mine, Ryan Burns, Hero Paranormal, introduced them, and they did a YouTube interview tonight about Dan Birish and all that. But Kent's had his hand up for a while. I just want you guys to go and listen to that because Brian is a very humble, quiet giant in ufology. If we had 10 Brians that all would come forward, people would figure out a lot of things real fast. But Kent, go ahead.
Yeah, hi guys. It's been a while. Yeah, just wanted to. Rick was talking about this MJ12 and whatever comes of MJ12 these days. I don't know what's funny, Brian, but whatever. There is a group, and the fact of the matter is, this group is international, and this group, it knows no borders. I had some experience in Eastern Europe back between 2006 and 2008. And got to know, because of the nature of my work and what I was there to do, I got to know, the head of security for the country and blah, 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 blah. And I became quite good friends with his sister. And it was very interesting to actually experience the power that these guys have. And I'll give you an example. Back in 1998, one of the arms of this group wanted me to go and sort out some issues in Indonesia. And they called me on the 9th of December, 1998, I think it was, and said, we need you in Indonesia. There's been a couple of fatalities, blah, 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 blah. We need you there next week. And I basically turned around to them and said, I can't be there. My passport expires in 4 months. And they said, just go up to the embassy and go and see them and we'll take it from there. So the next day I went up to the embassy, went into the embassy, handed in my passport, told them what I needed. And the guy literally laughed at me. He said, you've got to have at least 6 months to 12 months on your passport before we can issue you a visa. So I left the embassy. This is a real job. This is a real thing that happened. And went out and called the guy that had called me from this company and said, they're not going to give me a visa. It's going to be a problem. It looks like I won't be able to take the job. He said, go and have lunch and I'll call you back. Sure enough, an hour and a half later, he calls me back and he says, go back to the embassy. I walked into the embassy with an expiring passport, got it stamped, and was on my way to Indonesia the next week. So I'll say this much. These groups have no boundaries. They're linked to corporations, not governments. And they can literally go anywhere in the world. I mean, and I'm not trying to brag here or anything, but once you're in with these groups, I mean, I literally didn't apply for a job for over 20 years. I've had over 50 jobs working for different companies in different countries. Never had to apply for a job in 20 years because once you're in with the group, once you're accepted, you get a call as soon as you finish the last job and you're on to the next job. But from the experience in Eastern Europe, they had American involvement, they had that country involvement, and they were building probes that my friend saw that were beyond anything that we're using, well, maybe not beyond anything we're using
Okay,
now.
hold on, Kent. What do you mean by probes? What are you talking about here?
Measuring instruments to put inside a vortex that you can't penetrate, and the vast majority of them you put in aren't retrievable. And then finally, around I believe it was around 2010 that they were able to start retrieving some of the probes that they were putting in. It's a non-intermittent vortex inside a cave. So you can basically, it's a window to another reality.
Well, certainly an interesting story. Kent, do you have a question for Rick, or do you have any question you want to pose to the group?
Well, Rick, you remember when I talked about the black lasers? This was the same place I got the information about the black lasers. And you said you'd heard about the black lasers, and you remember telling me where you heard it from. So from the same source that I know about the wormhole, I was just wondering, have you ever heard about that? Because there was a story written, which was written as fiction, but it was actually an accurate account of what actually happened. I was wondering if you'd ever heard of this vortex in Eastern Europe that can be transversed.
Yes, yes, I have, from a couple different sources. And back in 1988, Brad Sorensen was a leading classified aerospace industrial designer. He worked on the F-117 Aurora and some other advanced aircrafts. While he was accompanying a particular four-star general to Lockheed, Sorensen saw some exotic, he called them exotic technology inside this hangar at Lockheed. And he saw three crafts flying, or not hover. They were hovering, seemed to be defying gravity. And he asked, Sorensen asked one of the Lockheed officials, "What are they?" He said, "They are ARVs, or alien reproduction vehicles, but I can't tell you anything more about that." And then a short time later, they went into another facility, and they saw these what he referred to as black lasers, and these lasers were doing obviously it was an experiment, and it was doing all sorts of strange things that was defying physics as we know it. And then he said, "What are they?" He said, "Oh, we've had them for a long time, but I can't go into it because you don't have a skill." I think he asked Sorensen, he said, "Let me see your badge again." And Sorensen gave him his badge. He said, "Oh, you're a visitor with only level 2 clearance," or something to that effect. So we knew way back that there were things that the government had perfected, even back in the 70s. This guy by the name of Mark McLandish, he was a graphic designer for DoD. His specialty was schematics. He was he was an architect, but he did the schematics. Now, any type of research and development project you were researching, you had to have schematics or architectural design for it. And he worked in an office at Area 51 that did nothing but that. So he would be brought these things, ideas or rough sketches, and he would make it into the sketches into a schematic. And he said that some ARVs were created back in the 60s. Now, if you want to believe that, well, we had the technology, I think, for a long time that were given to us by the extraterrestrials. Now, I'm not sure how many different species shared their technology with us, but I know that at least the Ebens and the race that J-Rod came from did.
Yeah, the other thing that a lot of people don't talk about it because they don't go back to 53 for whatever reason. But Harry Drew, as far as I know, was probably the best researcher, maybe Wendell Stevens also. But according to their stories, it wasn't just a crash. that's when the idea of a particular race gifting us. I'm using the word gifting because that's what I've read. Maybe it wasn't a gift. I don't know, but we're completely intact craft, not crash. We're just left. And I'm using the word left as in maybe there's more to it than that. Is there any truth to the idea that there might be races out there that have given us fully intact craft for whatever their reasons?
Yes, in fact, Gordon Novell, he has a long history. I'm sure some of you know who he is. He was an operative for the CIA. He also worked in the White House under Kennedy and Johnson. He actually created or designed Title III intrusion detection equipment, or bugs that you'd plant into some for espionage purposes. He has a long history of all sorts of things. He was apparently connected with Clay Shaw in New Orleans and other things. But anyways, jump ahead. He wrote a 800-page investigative report titled "The Supreme Cosmic Secret." And in this 800-page report, which was classified as a sensitive compartmented information, something like a SAP, he talks about exotic technology that we received from different alien species. He gave this, he shared this with Bush one, and also Clinton, and also with the Clinton's. I'm not sure if John Podesta was, I think, Clinton's chief of staff, or he was in the Clinton administration. I'm not sure which position he held. Now,
You like pizza, apparently. Go ahead.
yeah, he liked pizza. He also prepared a 78-page POTUS briefing, which did not focus the question of if UFOs and aliens existed, but to present the fact that they did exist. And he wanted to release this to the public, but Bush one in 1989 said, "Not no, but hell no. That's never going to get declassified." And but that briefing, that 78-page briefing, POTUS briefing, was used to brief Clinton, Bush II in 2001, and Obama. And I believe Podesta was also in the Obama administration. I don't know what position he was at, what he did, but he arranged for Obama to take a trip to Area 51 when Obama was supposed to be going to some summit someplace, Japan or whatever, I can't remember where, but actually they landed surreptitiously at Groom Lake, and Obama spent a full day and a half being briefed on the subject. Not the subject of extraterrestrials, the subject of reverse engineering of exotic extraterrestrial crafts and technology. This is all supposed to be in that POTUS report. So that's something.
How much street cred do you put into that? Are you over 80%, over 90%? Where are you at on that story?
Well, I'm pretty. We remember that I'm part of an advanced working group, and in that group we have retired CIA directors, DIA directors, military intelligence personnel, other intelligence personnel, and NASA scientists, or a couple of NASA scientists, who all were briefed into the program. So I would say that story is probably at least 95% accurate. I can't say it's
Well, that's good
100%.
enough for me. That's good enough for
Yeah,
me.
exactly. Good enough for me
It's
too.
way up there. Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah, I don't have any questions that come to mind. We got a couple speakers up here. Do you guys want to go ahead and take a shot? You know, I got a quick trigger. I just want you guys to know if you get sideways on me, I will pull that trigger.
Hey, Rick. Thanks for doing the space, man. These are always enjoyable to go back and listen to when you take part with us. You had mentioned in a space before that you had done an investigation in an old coal mine, and you were taken aback by the coal mine because you said it had newer walls inside of it, and maybe even had electricity inside of it. But more importantly, you had said that you came upon what you believed was some sort of security robot, and it was an interesting story. I was just wondering if you could expand upon that a little bit more, maybe give a little bit more detail about what you think you've seen there, and also what your thoughts were when you left the coal mine, like what you kind of were thinking when you left immediately afterwards. And thanks again.
Yeah, that incident happened back in the 80s. We were investigating, myself and another agent. I was stationed out of Area 51. And we were also not only pulling duty at Area 51, we were pulling duty over Tonopah. There were two females that were allegedly abducted along Highway 6, which runs from Warm Springs over towards Tonopah, the town of Tonopah, north of the Knowledge Test and Training Range perimeter. Anyways, they were abducted, and there's a full story that they told our intelligence officers about where they went, and they went inside a mountain. And well, although I didn't know where this facility could have been, there were people within Sandia National Laboratories, which controlled Tonopah, and Air Force personnel there, that it sounded like the old Urania mine, which is southwest of the base at Tonopah. And so, and somebody had told us that there was an old entrance into that mine. And I'm not sure if it was a coal or a gold mine, an old mine. It wasn't in service anymore. When the military took over that area in the 50s, all the mining operations were ceased. Anyways, it was myself, another OSI agent, and an Air Force security policeman that we were in a Jeep, and we found the entrance. Excuse me. And so we went in there. We had a flashlight. Of course, myself and the other OSI agent was armed with a sidearm because we're federal agents. The Air Force security policeman, a tech sergeant, who had been he was a Vietnam vet. I mean, he'd been in Vietnam, had an M16 rifle. And so we walked up this old entrance into the mine, and it went up a long ways. I mean, we probably walked for 500-600 yards. And when we got up to a bend, it kind of curved to the right. We saw light as if there was a lit room farther ahead. And so we thought, wow, okay, there's something up here. And as we walked farther up, which would have been towards the west, something appeared in front of us. It seemed like a robot to me. Big thing that came out, and I first thought it was some sort of a security apparatus, some way of scaring off intruders. And we were in fact intruders, because we're coming up this entrance from the outside that had a gate, but we bypassed the gate. So I thought, well, there's some kind of operation going on here. But as we got closer and closer, this object, this creature, device, or entity, brought up its left arm with something in it, like a wand or something. And we stopped, and we were shining flashlights on it. And I thought, okay, guys, I was the senior person there, and I thought, whoa, hold on, guys. We're not going to get involved in something we have no idea what it was. And where I was actually afraid, although the extraterrestrial side of it wasn't really kicking in, but the fact that it could be one of our facilities, and that was some kind of entity that was guarding it that I knew nothing about. So discretion is the better part of valor. And I said, hey, guys, let's just turn around and go back. We'll get somebody else to come up, a larger contingent of people. And so we turned around and went back. And we got back. We reported it to the Tonopah base commander, colonel. We gave him a briefing of what we saw. There was also the director of operations for Sandia Sandia Laboratories and their security person. And I asked the security person, I said, what's inside that mountain? You guys got a facility here? He said, no, we don't have anything in there. I said, bullshit. We saw something in there. You guys are not telling me the truth. No, he said, honest to God, we have nothing in there. There's no lab and there's nothing in there. He said, that's abandoned. It's been abandoned for a long time. I said, well, there's something in there. So we kind of turned it over to the security police. There was at that time a U.S. Air Force, a U.S. Army Special Forces group that was training not far down in Wellington site, which is probably 5 or 6 miles southeast of Urania Mountain. And so I guess they got a hold of them, and then they went up and went in and did whatever. So that's what I know. I didn't have anything to do after that. I didn't have any, residual effects because I didn't connect it really to extraterrestrials until later, in which there was a report that was classified that came out months later, probably 6 months later. But it didn't affect me, nor did it affect the other agent that was with me, and the Air Force Security Policeman, a technical sergeant. I don't think it affected him because he'd been in battles in Vietnam, and I don't think that would affect him either.
Okay, Rick, before we go to Kent, I want to ask you a question. I've never asked you this before. Did you ever receive any training, or as far as your upbringing? I mean, it's obvious to me that you have an ability to compartmentalize this information in such a way that it doesn't appear as though it really affects you too dramatically. I'm guessing that a lot of people that might have experienced what you have experienced would be very dramatically affected. Did you get any training in that, or is that just your nature?
No, when I went into intelligence, everyone in the field intelligence program, field operative programs, we have to go through the intelligence operations course, which is a very, very, very demanding course. Now, I'm not going to say it was like the Navy SEALs or anything like that, but first of all, in order to get into intelligence, you have to take all sorts of psychological tests to make sure you can handle the possibility of dealing with something extraordinary. So they tested you and do all sorts of different tests, which you either passed or failed, and then you pass those tests and you went into the course. And the course was a very, very unique course because they put you in situations where it was a no-win situation, but you had to complete that situation. You had to take it all the way up to as far as you could take it before it ended. And so it psychological affects you because you're giving an assignment, even though it's an exercise, you still want to do your very, very best. So you got to be prepared for anything. And believe me, during these exercises, everything, including the kitchen sink, was thrown at us. and we had to overcome it, neutralize, overcome, and map some kind of strategy to get through it or around it. So when you talk about how this affects you, when I went out to the field, I was geared up for the unknown, as everyone else that went through the course was, and so it might affect somebody that came off the street and I had them with me and I did something that they weren't prepared for. Yeah, sure, it would affect them psychologically or physiologically, but we were ready for it. Almost anything, we were conditioned for it. And I'm not saying everything, because there was a lot of things that I experienced that I wasn't ready for, but I accepted it and moved on. But so we had training to prepare for anything, and that's probably why we got through some of the things that we got through.
Okay, so we've got three hands. We've got Kent and Para and then Red, but Kent, try to keep it in a brief range if you can. Go ahead, Kent.
Yeah, a bit of an outfield question, Rick. If you know that there's been operations carried out on people that are considered a risk, what I want to ask you is, I saw something the other day posted that says that counterintelligence operations aren't allowed to be performed on American citizens. So even though they are, they're not supposed to be. I just wondered, do you know what the protocols are for doing the same thing to an international citizen? Do they need the permission of the country that the person's living in? And how do they get PSYOP operations sanctioned for people outside of America?
Well, first of all, Executive Order 12333 does not prevent intelligence from collecting or conducting counterintelligence operations on Americans. That's a fallacy. If you read the entire executive order, there's nothing in there that prevents it. What it does prevent is for the Central Intelligence Agency to spy on American citizens inside the United States. In order to conduct a counterintelligence operation inside the United States, there's some things that you have to show. Number one, that there's some form of threat to national security or to a national resource or to a priority resource. Number two, that there could be a foreign connection to that particular operation, meaning that maybe the Soviets involved, the Russians, or back then the Soviets or Chinese or whatever. And then there's a differentiation between a counterintelligence operation and a criminal counterintelligence operation. A criminal counterintelligence operation, you have to have probable cause to suspect the target of that operation, regardless of whether it's an American citizen or not, to have some connection to a violation of Title 18 United States Code, which is the criminal code, federal criminal code. Now, if you can prove all that, then you can conduct an operation. But this is a criminal operation, meaning everything you gather is going to be used in a court, like an espionage operation. You're going to gather everything, and then you're going to prosecute it in a court, whether it's a military court martial or a federal court. Okay, we don't deal with states or local courts. It's federal or military courts. Now, the other type of investigation is purely a counterintelligence operation, where you conduct a covert or clandestine operation, unbeknownst to the target, whereby everything you do is coordinated with a foreign intelligence surveillance court. Meaning, if you want a counterintelligence Title III or a bug or a surreptitious search, you go through the foreign surveillance court in Washington, D.C. Now, everything you gather in that type of counterintelligence operation cannot be used in a court of law. Can't be used because you're not conducting a criminal case whereby you're getting an order from the court. In a criminal case, you're going to go to a court, a federal court judge, whether it's there and wherever you're at, New Mexico, or you have to go to Washington, and you get a search warrant, a criminal warrant, based on probable cause to do something. Okay, all that can be used against the person, the target. But what you're doing counterintelligence-wise, just to collect the counterintelligence, can't be used against the person. That's what the difference is in 12333. Now, foreign nationals, you can do anything you want to foreign nationals. You don't have to. There's guidelines, but you don't have to notify the foreign the host countries. For example, Germany. I was stationed in Germany. I was a counterintelligence officer in Germany. When we suspected that a German was a spy, East German or West German, back in those days, it was West Germany, East Germany. We could conduct an operation and target that German national. We didn't have to notify the government, the German government, because we had what we refer to as a status of forces agreement, meaning back in those days, up until actually 1991, the military still had limited control over Germany. It started back in 1945 after the war. So we could target people without ever notify the government. And so now in the UK, it was a little bit different. Any case that we ran espionage against anybody in the UK had to be coordinated with either MI5 or MI6. That was an absolute mandatory requirement. Now, sometimes, and I already did one, sometimes they would say, go ahead and run with it. We're not really interested. If you get the guy, we'll figure out what to do with him. We had more help from MOD intelligence, because the Ministry of Defense in Great Britain had an intelligence section. And so we had more play with them than we did with MI5 or MI6, although we did have to coordinate. Like I said, I only did one case like that in the UK. So that's the scoop on Executive Order 12333.
Great, Rick. Okay, Para, and then Red Panda after that.
Hey, Rick. I was wondering if you knew about anything, or if you knew about Lawrence Rockefeller's involvement with ufology, and if he may have funded any particular individuals to look into the subject or any projects. I know he had something to do with a project called Project Hespelin, which was in Norway. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, all I can say is that there is some connection. Rockefeller, there was a connection between Rockefeller and the U.S. intelligence, but I don't know how much I can say about that. I don't know if it's still classified or not, but there's some connection, but I'm not going to go any farther than that.
Let me follow up on that. So that famous picture with Greer and Linda and Bigelow and all those people at the Rockefeller. I think Hillary allegedly was there. What was your takeaway as far as looking back and knowing what you know? What do you think that was all about? What was that gathering about? What do you think the message was? Was that a controlled message that they wanted to get out to the public, or was he really trying to get the truth out? What really was that about?
Well, I don't know what their intentions were, but it appeared to me that they were trying to get the information out, and they were trying to coordinate the type of information and how it was going to be disseminated. That's the way it appeared to me. But again, I wasn't in that group, and I really don't know what their intentions. I can just guess on what, based on what they did.
No problem. Okay, Red, what's you got, Red?
What up, everyone? Rick, the other day I actually did a deep dive on your uncle because I just found it so fascinating, and I found some documents. If you ever want me to, I could send you some of them, but some of them are PDFs, so I'd have to email them to you. Project Twinkle, 1951 correspondence, and even 1959 correspondence. But my question actually, and I'm sorry if you guys already talked about it, from your perspective, what do you think happened with that Lou photo? Some people are saying it was on purpose. Do you think he was set up, lapsed? It was just a mistake. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. We discussed that earlier.
Oh,
First of
damn
all,
it!
my uncle,
Sorry.
I have everything that there is about
Yeah, I figured.
my uncle. Either I have it or my cousin, his son has it, and we have a plethora of stuff. But as far as that photo, there has to be a reason why Lou did that. Now, could it have been disinformation? Could somebody tricked him? Could he be an unwitting source of disinformation? That's all possible, but unless he fesses up to exactly why he did what he did, I could just guess that. I don't know that it was a mistake. I think maybe there was some intentions behind it, but I don't know what that would be.
Great, thank you.
Red, does it appear sloppy to you, Red, or do you think it's a planned sloppiness?
You can't. I mean, the chandelier just happened, right? And it's like no one was really asking for a new photo. You know what I mean? And it got debunked so quick, and even like it kind of doesn't even make sense. Like if a pilot was flying, they wouldn't have to fly for that long to see it was like a stationary thing in the ground. Something just feels fishy. I don't know. I don't know, man. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I mean,
They're, they're
it's like,
asking for money too, right? So it's like you'd want to put your best foot
are
forward.
they?
Yeah, it was a UAP Disclosure Fund event, right? Um, yeah.
Well, we're gonna ask everybody donate like $1.25. It's just a half a load of laundry tonight. Go fund Rick in this space. We're gonna raise $1 million and we're gonna build a spaceship. All right, just be patient. We'll get there.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
We got Grider in the house. What's up, Grider? What do you got, buddy? I know you got something.
Hey, what's up? Hey, Rick. How you doing? And hey, everybody.
Good.
And thanks for inviting me up. I appreciate Dr. Dulce. I wanted to ask about uh Mark Pilkington and John Lumberg, and the rumors that they were affiliated with disinforming the crop circle community back in the 90s uh at the behest of MI5, or excuse me, MI6. Do you know anything about that? Is there any credence, or like, is there anything to that?
Well, John Lumberg, he was within a group of people that went out at the request of some entity. He would never say that it was MI6 or MOD or any law enforcement agency, but he went out with a group of people, and I actually went out with him and to make crop circles. I went out and he showed me how they made them. And then, of course, the next day, then people found it and claimed it was UFO related. Well, I know that he was doing it, and he was being paid to do it. I don't know who did. I don't know who was paying him, but I know he was part of that. I know Mark wasn't. I never saw Mark out there, but I know Mark and of course Mark and John were part of the Mirage Man and the book and so forth. But Mark swindled money out of me and him, and then ended up in Switzerland trying to avoid paying any of the money back. But I know John did make crop circles, his group, and somebody I know whether MI6 or whoever it was, I don't know. He never shared that information with me. But the crop circles that he made, and I was out there watching. I mean, we spent 5 hours out there at night making these things. They were quite remarkable how they were made. So I had known nothing about it before I got out there with him. But here's the dilemma: he would make one, and in the early days, and then 12 hours later, there would be another one made that he didn't know anything about. And that was, they could never find out who did that. And those other crop circles, those are the ones that had the stems burnt in a way that nobody could figure out how it was done. And in fact, there was a lot of labs involved in trying to analyze that. His didn't have any of those things. So that's what I know about it.
That was a great question, by the way, Grad. You got a follow up?
I have not a follow-up, but definitely thanks for answering that, Rick. I really appreciate it. And I have a new question though. What do you think about? Sorry if you guys have already talked about this. I just woke up and like I haven't been listening to anything before I came into the room. Do you have an opinion on what's going on with this Greer information that came out? This guy that went on Danny Jones making all types of allegations about Greer being like Mossad and then or being connected to Mossad, and then like the allegations once again are coming up about him, kind of having a deviant sexuality side and all this. It seems like a hit job. Well, I mean, it's definitely a hit job, whether it's true or not, right? But what do you think? Like, what's going on there? Kind of, do you like? Does it? I mean, it seems like it's been like I mean, at least for a decade now, there's been like, these rumors that have been popping up that seem like character assassination. And what do you think's going on there? Do you think it's something by the government, something by another camp in ufology that's trying to get Greer out of the way so that they can take over the helm as, the number one gatekeeper for whistleblowers? Or like, what's your opinion on that?
Well, that's a good question. I worked for Stephen for about 18 months, and I never would have suspected that he was gay. Number one, because he had a wife, and so I mean here's what Stephen's problem was. He trusted too many people. People he would make contact with retired or former military personnel, and then they would feed him information, and he would believe every single word or every single sentence that they spoke. And that was, he was so gullible to disinformation in counterintelligence or deception operations that I know that the government ran those operations against him and made him look bad. Now, I sat down with Stephen one night. We were at a hotel and we did a presentation, and it was afterwards. We had a real late dinner, and it was me and a couple others, and everybody else left. And it was just him and I. And we sat there, and I told him, I mean, point blank to his face, I said, they're running a deception operation against you. He said, well, so? I said, well, they're feeding you. He said, they may be giving me some false information, but I know the majority of what I'm getting is factual. And I'm not going to believe anything else. So that told me that no matter what I said or did, he was not going to believe it. So I just let him go on his own. And now there's so many people that are saying things. Now maybe maybe he does have a deviant sexual behavior, but it's none of my business. And I never saw it. I would have never guessed it. We would guys talk. We were amongst some guys once, and we were at a bar, and there were women there, and he was talking just as much about the girls than as everyone else was. I would never guessed he was anything other than. I mean, what happened behind closed doors is none of my business. So, but they're after it. I know they're after him, and I know the government is trying to disinform him. It's just trying to get that through to him, and I don't have anything to do with him. Occasionally, he'll send me an email. I don't think I've had a conversation with him in a couple years. It was just after COVID. I had he wanted to do something, and I wanted to bring me in, and I wasn't. He has a lot of money to spend too. I don't know where he's getting his money from. he wanted me to do something. He was going to pay me, and I didn't need the money. And I just said, no, Stephen, I'm with Gaia now, and I'm not interested in that. And so I haven't had any kind of telephone conversations with him since then. Occasionally I'll get an email from him.
Shit. Another great question, Grant. I'm going to give you a third question, bro, if you've got one, because you're like 2 for 2 right now. You just said 2 off the wall. Maybe 1 clear the wall. I'm not sure. We might have to go to the replay on one of those.
Let me think. Heck, I mean, like I said, I just woke up. I guess kind of a personal question. So, and kind of this is the first time I've really talked about it publicly. I've talked about it once in a space with UFO intros down there during the interview that I had with him, where we did a space where he interviewed me just as a way to kind of introduce me to the community and my backstory and all that. And I went to basic training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and this kind of ties into the Greer thing too, because I, of course, like everybody, I mean, when you first get into ufology, it's it's kind of easy to fall into that, hating Greer, or not hating, but doubting Greer if you're on the skeptical side of of the topic when you come in. It's really kind of easy to fall into that. Same thing with kind of hating Rick Doty. Being a Doty hater is kind of an easy thing to fall into because of the it's just the way that the story is told by many people. And but with Greer, I doubted him for the longest time. Thought that he was just making stuff up left and right. Did not believe anything. And then I came across where he had a case in his archives on his website about Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and that's where I went to basic training at. And I went to basic training there in June and July of 2007. And the last week of my basic training we were out marching back from the field. It was our very last night. We were marching back to the barracks to shower up and then graduate basic training. And we had a black triangle float about 35 feet over the back of our formation, and about 10 of us saw it. Uh, and it was the typical black, massive black. It looked exactly like, when it passed over my head, it looked exactly like my profile picture. Although I think that picture is from a video that has been proven fake, but that's exactly what it looked like. And it just kind of rotated over the back of our formation. And it was about the size of like a Major League Baseball infield, and quiet, no propulsion, no set, it was no downdraft of air from any rotors, no it I mean, it was so silent that the other 140 guys that were in formation didn't even hear it. They didn't even know. And only about 10 of us, like I said, saw it and had that experience. And like I said, this was on Fort Sill, and it kind of corroborated with a story that was in the archive with Greer. Later on, I found out after the fact that Greer had a whistleblower come forward talking about a crash that had happened out there at Fort Sill involving a black triangle, a TR-3B type craft, and that there was an underground hangar out there operated by Northrop Grumman. And I want to know if you have any information about that. If since then, like I said, I've been able to corroborate, find other people on Nufarek who have, reported a sighting out at Fort Sill. It's a common thing to see this triangle apparently, but I wasn't into ufology at the time. I was, in basic training, and as you know, Rick, when you're going through basic, the last thing you're going to do is like care. I mean, it was just something that didn't even phase me then. We were so tired and so focused on training and getting to our unit and all that that I didn't even really think about it until years later. But yeah, I mean, do you know anything about Fort Sill or anything that's going on out there? And do you know anybody else that has had a sighting in the military of the TR-3B? And yeah, that's about it.
So you're an artillery guy, huh? Fort Sill.
13 Bravo.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
13 Bravo artillery. Yeah. I had my cousin's son went there before you, back in the 90s, but he was air defense artillery. But anyways, what I heard was the incident happened at Altus Air Force Base, which would have been west of you as Fort Sill. And that was probably in the 90s, where something flew over the base just as they were trying to launch or trying to, I think a C5, or I think it was a C5, was trying to take off, but this object, which was a diamond shaped, a triangle shape, I mean, flew over the run and went into the runway. So the C5 Galaxy had to abort its takeoff. Now, I know that incident, and I actually spoke with a pilot of the years later, 10 years later, of the C5, and it was a female. She told me the story, but she said, I said, well, was it on? Did you try to hail it on one of the frequencies? And she said, no, I didn't. The tower was on 121. If anybody that flies, 121,000 is kind of like the hailing frequency for the tower to use if there's any stray aircrafts around the ground, and nobody would answer. So they were trying to call them on different frequencies. That's the only case that I can remember hearing about in Oklahoma regarding possible that TR-3B or a triangle shaped object.
Cool, thanks. And I mean, I have one more question, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it, Grad. You're on a roll, bro. I'm not going to stop you.
Okay, so one thing that I struggle with, and this is something I think a lot of people in the community, Rick, don't really grasp. And I know this is going to sound, God, people are going to clip this. This is really not going to help my reputation asking this question, but this is how I think about it is sometimes I'm doing research, right? I'm poring over DoD documents, and I mean, doing a lot of research, on using open source information, nothing classified or anything, right? Anything that anybody else can kind of find the information to on the DTIC website or other, open source, FOIA repositories. And one thing that I kind of struggle with is like, do you think that do you think that researchers need to like consider kind of how hard they press, uh, or like how they share their research? Because sometimes I think that maybe like we're helping maybe by collecting all this data and all these in doing all this analysis and all this talk that sometimes we're helping like foreign intelligence maybe that by being this network of kind of spotters around the country, right? Do you see what I'm getting at? That maybe, I mean, I just imagine some Chinese intelligence guy, Air Force intelligence guy, waking up to start his day and then just like checking UFO Twitter or checking like a UFO forum, to collect like the day's sightings and all that, and then he just goes to like the beach for the rest of the day or something.
Yeah, he's in Logan space. I'm sure they've got like 24/7 on Logan.
But I mean, like, how do we kind of balance? I don't know. Like, do you think that there's any way that we can kind of damage national security or hurt ourselves, or with the research, or do you think that the information that we can find or collect together, do you think that that it's really kind of inconsequential to the overall big picture of geopolitics?
Well, the hazards of being a free country is the First Amendment, and um, I'm sure the Chinese and the Russians are taking an advantage, and uh, I can almost guarantee that there are either uh, Russian embassy, Russian Chinese, or Russians and Chinese in here in the United States, monitoring these rooms, these spaces, and collecting everything they can think they can they get out of it, including recording everything that everyone says, and then they go back and filter that and determine what information they want, or if they found something that they haven't heard before. I'm sure that's being done. Um, you know, uh, the Chinese do have a UFO organization. I learned about that when I was in Japan doing a lecture at Yokohama University. One of the Japanese professors told me that the Chinese have, but they don't have the open forum like we have here, they monitor everything and they shut people down, and they monitor everything that anybody says on the internet, which we probably do that too. I've seen some rooms where I knew some people in this room. In fact, I'm looking right now, and there's one particular person in this room, and he's a listener. He's not anonymous, who is in fact works for an intelligence service. So they monitor too, and they get information that maybe they didn't have before. And so, yeah, are we damaging national security? I think maybe sometimes in a way we are, and I might be guilty of saying things I shouldn't say. As I heard Jason Sands talked about something a few months ago that I cringed at him explaining some techniques on how to bug or monitor the airway, which I almost positive is still classified. But anyways, I think yes, you're right, Greider. I think that we sometimes say too much, but that's us in a free societies, not being able to or not having to restrict ourselves.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, I mean, that was a great answer. Something that I always like to ask people is, I ask them when we're talking about, comparing the way that our governments operate, the Chinese government and, our government is, I ask people, I say, name me one Chinese base, name me one Chinese military base, name me one, name me one secret underground Chinese military installation. You can't do it, right? But yet, we turn ours into, theme parks, where with tours and guided tours and, it's just, yeah, it's something that really bothers me, but thanks for the answer. I really appreciate it. And I don't have anything else. Thank you, Dr. Dulce.
You
Good
know,
job.
I can tell you a quick story. My wife and I did a cruise uh, from Japan up China, South Korea, down to Vietnam in a cruise ship. And when we got to China, we were going to spend a full 2 days there, and we were going to take us up to the Great Wall of China, a Great Wall, and so forth. Anyways, there's a we got off and we got on these buses, beautiful buses, and we travel up. We're going into Beijing. We spend the night in Beijing, and then we go that morning north up to the Great Wall. And there's a place, there's a air base up there. Now, I think there were some people in the group knew that there was a Chinese air base. But it's funny, as we started out from our hotel at Beijing, and we got probably 45 minutes just outside. Beijing has a series of rings around the city. You get the one ring, you get another ring, and the shades on the bus shuts. And up front, the driver is shut off. So the driver can see, but we can't see anything. Of course, the lights come on. We knew that this bus was going by an airbase. And I had asked our guide, who was a female, she was very, very nice, spoke perfect English. I said, what happened? She said, oh, the sun reflects off some things and we don't want to inconvenience the passengers. I said, you mean off the airplanes on that at airport? One thing I shouldn't have said. And she just looked at me, and this nice, kind, gentle looking female had this stern look on her face. And she got real close to me and she said, I would never repeat that if I was you. I said, got it. No problem. So, yeah, they don't advertise their bases.
Oh my God, can you imagine the movie going to rescue Doty, like a secret team going to rescue Doty from a Chinese prison? That would be an epic movie right there, I'm telling you.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, we'll send the Ebens in, like on on a Bob Lazar sports ship to pick them up. Great questions, Grider. Seriously, bro.
Yeah, really great
For a
question.
guy who just woke up, that was a series of great questions. Anybody else would like to ask any questions?
Okay, I mean, I got one more, I guess. Like Rick, like how do you deal with frustration, or how have you seen people kind of deal with the frustration from, being in the UFO community? I mean, we all deal with it, whether you're an experiencer, a skeptic, a researcher, a debunker. Everybody gets, I mean, this is an extremely volatile topic where emotions run high and it's extremely easy to get kind of resentful. And it seems like turmoil just kind of is the norm, right? There's not a whole lot of healthy long-term like progress being made in ufology, at least in the UFO community. It seems like, whether it be on the forums back in the day, the conventions and everything, and then now with everything kind of being on X spaces and stuff like that. Forums aren't that big anymore. Subreddits are, I guess, but like how do you think is the best way to kind of deal with the burnout or the frustration? Just take breaks, or as far as, like, for instance, I did a lot of research into the MH370 case, those pair of, what I think are CGI videos of an alien, zapping, of an alien orb group zapping a plane into a wormhole. Right, and it's been a really popular case, and, but, like, I did a lot of research. I mean, I spent probably 4 months, like, almost every day of that 4 months, I was going through a divorce, and then so I had a lot of time, and needed an escape, so I escaped doing that case, doing research, and, but, like, the case is still more popular than ever, and it seems like a lot of the research that I did was kind of, for nothing. And it seems like the progress in spaces that I thought was being made, discussing, the case and the debunks and everything, it kind of didn't really have an effect. Or it's, yeah, like, how do you think is the best way to deal with kind of that burnout, that can happen with, with the community with these cases?
Well, there's sometimes you just have to sit back and bite your tongue and just uh, you can't do anything about it. What really used to upset me so much is how the UFO community harms itself. I mean, they are the worst disinformers. Uh, they disinform so much within that people on the outside couldn't touch it. And Phil Klass said that at a convention some years ago, when he did a lecture saying, "You people do more harm from within than I could ever do from outside." And that's true, because these people write these books, these UFO books, that have zero facts, maybe a few names, but nothing else in this book is fact. And then they go out on their speaking tour and promote this book, and the people are buying it, and they're reading it, and it disinforms these people because they think it's true. But there's nothing in that book is true. There's so much disinformation. They do very little research on documentary. Now, the works of fictions, yeah, whatever. Not talking about them, but the book Trinity, Paula Harris. That book is, and it's been proven. I mean, if you go through the internet and listen to the cousin and some of these other people talking about their so-called witnesses, their witnesses are totally 100% wrong. The guy that claimed to be a policeman from California never was a policeman in California. The state police officer in the 1940s that was supposed to have been on scene, he didn't join the state police force until 1951. He was in fighting a war in Germany when he was supposed to be there investigating this. Bill Moore did a heck of an investigation on that incident. And he found out that what had actually crashed was a glider, an Army glider that was being flown from White Sands. The groove in the earth, everything points to a glider. And so And there wasn't a human inside the glider. There was a dummy in there for the weight. The Air Force, the Army Air Force plane was a two-seater that was pulling this glider, was an experimental glider with this dummy in it, and it crashed there near that ranch, near the Trinity site. That's it. That's what it was. And then they make this big thing. So that's just one example of many other books, like the Roswell incident. Supposedly it was the Germans that did this, and they disinformed the public. These people write these books based on very little factual information, and then they expound on it with false information or speculation, and people buy the book, and now you just disinform the public.
Okay, I got a question. I told you, Rick, earlier, I went into my storage and I literally thought I had two books that I had gotten a long time ago, Communion and The Alien Harvest by Linda Moulton Howe. And I thought, I don't know what happened to those books. I must have lost them or whatever. And I'm going through my storage and here's a little box and there they are. I'm so psyched. But The Alien Harvest, that's a book that nobody really talks about these days. I'm pretty sure that was written like 30 years ago or whatever it was with Linda Moulton Howe. And I mean, if you really look at the book and you look at the information in the book, I mean, she was so far ahead of her time at that point that book got overlooked. Would you agree? Or what's your comments on that book, The Alien Harvest?
I think, I think it was 1984 she wrote it.
Jesus,
She had
that's like
two
40
editions
years.
of it. Oh, by the way, did you get my package?
I'll go down tomorrow morning and I'll check before I head out to Vegas.
Yeah,
I
it
will.
was supposed to be. It was supposed to be there today.
All right, I'll
So,
check tomorrow. Thank
okay,
you, by the
yeah.
way.
So, yeah, her book, a fascinating book. She did her research, and so that's I would recommend that book, even though it's older. It's probably out of print, but I would definitely recommend it because it's a plethora of factual information in that book, and
She put her letters to you in that book, and I
yeah,
didn't know that.
she
I
did.
read the book like 10 years ago, and then I forgot about it, and then I looked at it and went, what the fuck is Rick Doty? She's like I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this HBO documentary. She was trying to confirm all the information is what it sounded like, but then I didn't read it after that. So I mean, that's interesting. So you were tasked with basically putting the kibosh on that documentary, and you've said that before.
Yeah, that was a program or a Operation Kensaw, KINSAW, and that I was just a small part of that. The operation was being run in Washington D.C. by AFOSI District 4 out of Andrews Air Force Base, and because Linda was coming out there, I interviewed her and showed her the documents and so forth. And OSI ended up providing her with something that was detrimental to HBO, canceling the not me, but another OSI agent provided her with a small film clip, and
Was it real or fake?
it was fake. It discredited her, and therefore she lost that contract. That was Operation Kensaw, and like I said,
So they
it
gave
wasn't
her
my
a fake
operation.
video so that when she tried to sell her sizzle reel, and then the people that would verify
Right.
the sizzle reel found out that it was fake, so they just said, "No, we're not doing this." Linda, is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. And the
Wow, I
fact
didn't know that.
and the fact that we promised her, or OSI, not me, promised her another film, which they never delivered. I think that altogether canceled.
And you know what's
She
interesting
was
about Linda is, of all the people, she's never really done, as far as I can recall, a major film. I mean, with all the knowledge, she could probably hit the home run if she had a really good producer and a handler that could keep her on. You know what I mean? I mean that would be I would watch that film. You know what I mean? Linda Moulton Howe. Yeah, we just can't include some of the faux pas that she accidentally put in there on a few of her occasions. But you know what? We're not perfect. Even she's not perfect. Even none of us are perfect. You can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
right. Yeah, true. And
When you got Ocean.
she's a
Oh,
good
go ahead, Rick.
researcher, though. She's a good researcher. I think she's one of the best in the business right now. I don't know of any other ones. I like Leslie, but she tends to, no matter what you show her or tell her, she tends to be really critical. That if she was more open-minded, I think. But she is good. Leslie is a good researcher.
She almost strikes me, and this I'm speculating. I don't believe this, that she's like she's placed to be that, to play that role, and that is probably her personality. But it's almost like it's controlled, but it's not bad information. But it's like just managed information. I mean, am I off there, or do you see that possibly?
Yeah, you're right. You're right with that. She's nice. I mean, she's a good researcher, but she tends to be overboard on some things, and I think that does more harm than good.
Cool. Okay, what's up, Ocean?
Hey, what's up? I just got my little man to bed a while ago now, so this is Mummy's After Hours. I love the late night Rick spaces. I live for these. I wanted to ask, I don't know if you've gone over it yet, but the latest image that was shown at that UAP hearing that appears to be like what people speculated it could be an irrigation field. I'm just curious if you've ever seen that image before and if you have any lore tied to it, or maybe like if it reminds you of anything with some lore attached to it. Yeah, have you seen that photo before?
No, I've never seen it before until it was released. I did my own research. It took me about uh, a minute to find it because it had the GPS coordinates. And then I did some, fancy things on my computer with a particular program that I have, and I actually regenerated that almost exact picture, although it was a little my grass ring was a little bit too high in the sky. So yeah, it wasn't. I don't know why he did that, and maybe there's a reason. Maybe there is some kind of disinformation, or he's being tricked, or somebody gave him that. I don't know, but it sure backfired on him.
Yeah, I think they're calling it the Four Corners UFO, but yeah, I don't know. He said he just got permission that day to share it. So like there's that. But I mean, yeah, I feel like us, the community kind of like came to our own conclusion that's probably not a UFO. He gave dimensions, which I think is I don't know. If you're speculating, maybe don't give dimensions or I don't know. He did say that it hadn't been vetted, that as well. So I don't know. It is what it is. But yeah, okay, cool. So you've never seen it. So there must be like a vault somewhere of like potential UAP, UFO pictures that they pull from. And yeah, I wonder who gave it to him because I feel like they probably should have used discernment too, because that's kind of all over the world now, is that there was this huge craft, right? So but yeah, I do get the point. Like he was expressing that he wants a place to, like for pilots to report that, although it might be a satellite image. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what his reasoning was behind that, but it didn't take long for people to discredit it.
What about the
What?
chandelier picture before and then?
Oh God, let's
Have you
not.
ever seen that
Oh
one?
shit, no.
My friend who is a was in the space here a little bit ago, but my friend who works at Advanced Working Group with me, he was a photo interpreter in the NSA, and he's an expert and all that. And when that chandelier picture came out, he emailed us in Signal like 10 minutes later that it was a chandelier. It was a reflection out of a window of a chandelier, and he reproduced it. So we knew right away. I thought, my God, Lou, how can you be so dumb? I mean, how can he be so gullible? But anyways, I don't know. Maybe there's a reason.
Yeah, he could be working, right? Maybe he's doing his job, which I got respect for that if he's doing his job.
Yeah.
But if he's being tricked or if he's taking images and he's not sure of them, I don't know, we gotta do better, I think, as a community. But I will say our community is very robust in finding answers because we all put our heads together and came up with the same kind of like we were able to find like the location as well. So like I was super proud of us for like even skeptics, believers, it doesn't matter, we all came together to kind of figure it out. So I'm happy to be a part of this community for sure.
Good questions. Thanks,
If I
Soshi.
had to guess, I don't think he was tricked. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, he's done work for people like Hal, and he's done other jobs, whatever. And I just can't imagine. I mean, I could be wrong, Rick, but I just don't see him being tricked. With that would be so amateurish, and he's not an amateur. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I do. And there, like I said, there has to be a reason for it. I don't know what that is, but there has to be a reason.
I know Red's got an opinion.
No, I'm
Uh,
dumbfounded, bro. I don't know why he would do that. It feels like I said, it feels on purpose to me, but yeah, no idea.
I kind of feel sorry in a weird kind of way for Milkfart because here his heroes just keeps fucking up, and you know what I mean. It's like you can't really say much at this point.
Well, no, they're writing with he never said, he said he didn't vet it. Like, it's okay, it's good. But yeah, no.
Well, something Hal Puthoff said on that Joe Rogan interview or whatever, it was reshared by one of Ashton's friends because Ashton did a live stream. Anyways, um, yeah, so like was something that Hal had said was like looking for what was the word he used? Amnesty for like these contractors, because contractors have information and if they come forward, they get sued. So we're not even really talking about government. We're talking about like, government contractors. And I know Rick, you shared about how that kind of there's that loophole where like it's a government contract, so you can't get information, but it's also like private as well, like through a company, so you can't get information. So I think it's those guys. And Hal was just saying that like they need like proper way to come out where they don't, they're not going to get like in a bunch of trouble because that's going to deter people from coming forward. And of course Ashton was just like guillotine. And it's like, no, we need to like find a way where it's like if you know a thing, you got to be able to come forward with that without getting guillotined, right? So I found that part of the interview interesting and insightful. Yeah, I don't know, did you see that interview, Rick, with
Yeah,
the
Rick, did you see
Hal
that?
and
Yeah, I saw some of it. I didn't see all of it, but I'm surprised that Hal said what he did say, and but that's it's interesting. I don't know if somebody's going to knock on his door and tell him he said too much, but I don't know. I hope not. But there is under DARPA, under the contracts, which is exempt from FOIA, contractors have to be very careful of what they say. There have been, and a lot of people don't follow this, there have been in the past 10 years, there have been 16 contractors prosecuted under the Espionage Act for releasing information pertaining to DARPA contracts. So they have to be careful, these contractors, of what they say. And not only would they lose, they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose their security clearance. And if they lose their security clearance, they certainly can't do their job. And that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And so they have to be careful of what they say.
What parts of the Rogan interview were you kind of like, well, I can't believe Hell said that?
When he talked about the technology and he went. I think he went above beyond some of the things he said before about the materials, and I don't. I think he went right up to the edge. I don't think he said anything that is going to get him in trouble. But I just thought it was interesting how he addressed that and the contractors. Maybe a little bit of inside information about what they can do to protect themselves. But I don't know. I guess he knows what he's doing. Yeah. It was interesting though.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be something though, Rick? I mean, what is he in his mid to upper 80s? I'm not sure exactly, but
He looks good
he's
for
been.
his age. I'll say that.
Yeah,
He
He
doesn't look like
does.
he's
He's very
80.
sharp.
Yeah.
he's 80. He's 80.
I would take him over Trump in a heartbeat. By the way, I just want to say that.
Yeah, he's in his 80s. In his 80s.
88, born in 1936 is what
Yeah,
Google
1936.
says.
Yeah, 88. But
So I mean,
ever
he's been around for at least 55, 60 years in the field, so to speak, right?
Oh yeah, he was he was in the Navy. He was a laser.
Navy intelligence,
No,
correct?
no,
Was he
laser.
Navy intelligence?
He was a laser
No,
physicist in
laser.
the Navy, and he got out and worked for NSA for a while, and so he's been in the subject a long time. And yeah,
Now, yeah, I don't know
been
if he's
around a
ever
while.
said. Has he ever had an experience when he was in the Navy, or did he ever talk about an experience that he had in the Navy that indicated something of the non-human nature, or is that not part of his story?
It wasn't necessarily a UFO, more of a strange encounter. And I'm not going to go in details. I'll let him tell his own story, but there is a story that he told us.
If we do the space, that would be great. If you can, I mean, if the story's not classified, it doesn't jeopardize anything. And people love to hear these stories. I mean, Jesus, we're going back like over 60 years ago. He should be able to tell those stories. I would hope that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see whatever he wants to talk about.
Do you remember how you met him and like under what circumstances and whatnot?
Yeah, I met Hal when the aviary was up and running. My first aviary meeting was in 1980 at a secure facility in around McLean, Virginia, not the CIA headquarters, but near there. I was at the time more or less a courier. I was transporting some classified information from one place to another, and I was invited there by somebody my dad knew real well, was Richard Helms. Anyways, that's where I first met Hal. He was a member of the aviary. Met him, talked to him. That was it. And over the years, when I left intelligence in '88, I had a brief conversation with him at another meeting, and he asked me then if I was interested in going to work for him, and I didn't at the time. Then in '94, he called me. We had a long conversation. He said, "I want you to come work for me," and so I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it," and I did. And so that's how what happened.
Cool. I got some more then. I'm reading this, looking at this valet book, The Forbidden Sciences one, and there's a footnote about you having a relationship with Senator Claiborne Pell and his assistant, C.B. Scott Jones. Is that accurate? Do you have any interesting stories about them?
Well, Scott Jones was part of the aviary, as Senator Pell was, And yeah, Scott was a Navy intelligence officer. He was actually a reservist during the time he was in the Navy, and he had a lot of stories to tell about his experience with the phenomena on board Navy ships. And so, that's how I interfaced. I mean, I enjoy hearing the stories back then, and he told the stories about what he saw and strange things occurring while he was out on a cruise or deployment. They call it deployment. I think he mostly did the upper Atlantic between Greenland, Iceland, and Soviet Union. So he saw some strange things up there.
Okay, one more.
Okay.
There's this
You got any more, Red?
yeah, well,
You're
there's
the-
something I came
Go
across
ahead.
last night, and it was kind of interesting. And I think it's actually written about in the same ballet book too. Kind of close to your name is the Gulf Breeze Six, which was like these six military officers who I think were actually West German, and they like went AWOL, and they felt like they were like in contact with beings and stuff like that, and then they went to Gulf Breeze in the 90s. Do you remember this? And apparently they were even trying to get to Hal Puthoff's place. Do you remember this whole saga at all, or anything about it?
Yeah, that was quite a quite a story. Yeah, there were West German military officers. I believe they were in the United States on training, and they had some sort of a contact. I don't remember all the specific
I think it
details,
was a
but
Ouija board, and it almost seemed like
yeah,
maybe in West
yeah, it
Germany
was
they
a
were,
Ouija.
yeah,
Yeah, there was something to do, something like that. Some
they weren't low
paranormal.
level people. They were like really smart. You know what I mean? It was kind of weird.
Right. Yeah, they were a regular army, and back in those days, West Germany had a draft, but if you wanted to stay, you got more money, and they were veterans, seasoned career military officers, and they did some kind of paranormal thing, maybe a Ouija board, and then they went. It was kind of like they had to go and contact all these different people. They went to Golf Breeze and they contacted some people there. That the all Golf Breeze incident that occurred. Then they went to Huntsville, Alabama, and contacted Dr. Price, Dr. Bartholomew Price, who was at the time a very prominent, almost secretive physicist in this subject area. And then trying to get I remember.
Apparently they weren't like they didn't get in trouble afterwards or anything. It seemed like they
I don't
kind of got off easy. And apparently one of them was one of the Geller kids, which I found really interesting to learn too. It's like when you dig a little deeper than like what the headline showed, there's like something was actually kind of going on there. I think I don't know what though.
Yeah, because they were technically AWOL, I think, and they when they did all this stuff, they did a report and turned it in, and they didn't get any trouble for it. But that's what I remember. There's probably a lot more to it that I don't remember.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, at the risk, I'm going to take a risk right now, Rick. I don't know. You must have brought him up. The
Yeah, I bring him
infamous.
up, and as long as he behaves himself with legitimate questions,
All right,
I don't
you're the boss.
find any
Go ahead.
problems.
You're the boss.
Hey, all right. I appreciate it, man. No, I try to. You're a legend, Doty. I mean, come on. Whether it's pro or con, you're in UFO lore, no matter what. And I was really surprised when I was asking you last time that you got out of the Air Force in '88, and then just for some reason, I guess it's just because of the impression you made on me that I thought you were in there a lot longer than that, like maybe through the '90s or something like that. Now I know after you got out, you did say you had an interest before when I talked about maybe teaching, and I don't know if that ever came across an opportunity, but I know you went and did your police work at some point, and maybe it's somewhere in there in the '90s that you did that. You could sort of give us the update on it, but what I'm trying to figure out is that when you were doing your police work, I think it was still in the New Mexico area. So with all that UFO lore and paranormal stuff going on there, encounters and related events that would be happening even while you're doing that work, is there anything that maybe you came across that in your investigative work with your police work, or just some kind of encounter that you bumped across any events like that, if that makes any sense? And yeah, just like a little more fill in about your police working years and maybe your teaching or something, because that was something you were interested in and what you liked, what you hoped to teach if you never did it. Anyway, thanks.
I think I've I've hashed this out over and over and over again. In fact, last week I think I gave my entire story, but I didn't during the time I worked for the New Mexico State Police. I did not have any UFO related investigations or anything like that. We had people who reported things, strange objects in the sky, but we didn't normally handle those things. We would maybe take a report.
Hold on, Rick. What about that time that was reported out there in Zuni at that on that highway out there that somebody ran over a Bigfoot?
Yeah,
did you get to
yeah,
investigate?
that was uh, somebody hit a well, they claimed they hit a Bigfoot. That was on a state road, and in those days, the state police had exclusive jurisdiction on state roads, highways, USO roads, and things. And there was another trooper and myself that went down there. Something happened. I don't know what. Obviously, the Bigfoot wasn't there when we got there. I think probably the best UFO, I mean the Bigfoot incident was just south of Grants in the Cibola National Forest. There's campground, U.S. Force campgrounds down there, and we had a family camping at a campground, and they encountered something that came up and tipped their. They had a pop up camper. It's a camper, and you pop it up. Well, something came and tipped it over. Um, they I think I can't remember how old the girl was. She was young, like 8 or 10. She saw it, but none of the other family members saw it. But it didn't stay. It left, and we had went down there and checked on it. And this little girl, she gave her story 3 different times, and she never changed it once. So I think, but she said it was a big bear. But the father who actually chased something into the forest said it was running on 2 legs. It was bipedal. It wasn't a bear. So I don't know. That would have been
Well, Rick,
interesting
I've
story.
got some bad news for you, Rick. VC, he doesn't believe in Bigfoot. I tried to tell him about the Bigfoot a little bit back, and apparently he talked shit about me afterwards. So what do you think, VC? Are you now that Rick's told you some Bigfoot stories? Are you kind of softening up on the idea, or are you still a skeptic about Bigfoot, VC? That's what I want to know.
Oh, well, I have no doubt that people see Bigfoots all the time. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. But um y- yeah, whether that's really a Bigfoot or a bear or who knows what, they're still seeing them. So what can I say? I mean, as far as they're concerned, it happened. Just like Doty said right there, the girl thought it was a bear, and the father or the other person, thought it was Bigfoot. So it seems to always end up that way, right? These kind of stories, they're hard to get. We never collected an actual Bigfoot, right? So,
Right. Okay,
yeah.
so we're gonna put you on pause
Okay.
for a minute, though, VC. 'Cause Logan's got his
All right.
hand up.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Logan.
Logan.
Actually, I was just looking at this post. I don't remember when it was, but it was like there's so much Bigfoot evidence and people just ignore it or whatever, right? But it was like I think it was like somebody in like 100 years ago has like a Bigfoot like hand or foot or something like this, and there's all kinds of like other like physical evidence of like these Bigfoots. I mean, I don't know. Dr. Dolce would know more than I would, but anyways, I was gonna point out real quickly. I saw a another post from was it Disclosure podcast, he got like another third witness to the 29 Palms UFO sighting at the base over there, and I just thought, wow, it's interesting. Turns out, what do you guys think about that case?
I haven't heard about 29 Palms other than the
Arthur
triangle
killed it.
thing or whatever.
Dude, are you serious?
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard something. I don't know enough about it though.
It's a
I
complete.
You're going back to
Yeah,
what you were talking about earlier. Hold on
the
real quick. Go ahead, Grider. Go ahead.
the 29 Palms case was infrared flares. That's what it was. It was infrared flares. Uh, I proved that. I personally proved that Corbell basically manipulated the witness, the primary Marine witness, who I spoke to, by the way, personally.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the primary Marine witness, I actually found and got in contact with, or excuse me, he got in contact with me, but through a comment on YouTube, right? And only Ty and I, and of course Corbell and Weaponize have spoken to this primary Marine witness, independent. It's just us three, who have actually spoken to him. Arthur hasn't even spoken to him, and I proved conclusively like those were infrared flares. The Marine witness thought that they were flares. He had a bunch of buddies who all thought that it was flares, but Corbell wooed them with promises of congressional testimony, getting in front of Congress, of being in a Netflix documentary, and Corbell manipulated the witness to change his story. And that's what you ended up seeing on Weaponized when they covered 29 Palms. That's a fact, all right? Corbell lied about the tip that he received. He didn't receive a tip. That's not how he found out about the videos of that, infrared flare formation. He actually went on Facebook, and overnight, within 7 hours of this kid posting it, uh, like overnight on like a Wednesday night, between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., Corbell had already found this video that this kid had posted on Facebook and had been in the kid's DMs by 5 a.m. that next morning. So Corbell lied about the provenance of like how he came about, learning of the case, right? There weren't all these Marines that were coming to him. He didn't get a tip from a high level military source. Corbell uses, this lie about having connections to a high level source in the military he actually used it to not only manipulate the witness into thinking that the witness didn't know what he saw, but also to manipulate the public into thinking that there was more credibility to the case, with that tip, being the source of how he learned about it. When really it was just Corbell browsing Facebook and came across it, at, like after midnight one night. And so, yeah, Corbell's a liar. That case is nothing more than infrared flares, Lu 19 flares. It's a fact. That's a
It
fact.
is an open
There's
debate
no,
though with
it
Arthur.
is, it's a fact.
Okay, hold on, Grider. You're on a roll. I'll give you that. And Red, I know you got a lot to say, but let's get Rick's take on this. Rick, from what you know and what you just heard, what can you comment?
Yeah, I heard it was flares. But I don't know. I don't know as much as he did about the incident. So, um, very, I just heard what other people talk and said, but I've never looked into it myself.
Does it seem, I don't know. I don't know Jeremy personally, so I'm not going to speculate, although people love to speculate. It is
Well,
fun to speculate.
I know Jeremy. I've had numerous encounters with Jeremy, and Jeremy was, Jeremy tries to push everything he can in his. He's told me many times, I have sources deep inside, Nellis Air Force Base or Creech Air Force Base or some other base, and they're telling me this. Or now I do. I believe George Knapp, and I believe that George Knapp probably has contacts out in Area 51, but I don't necessarily believe everything that Jeremy says.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, VC, we're giving you a little crack at the bat. It's the third inning. You got nobody on, nobody out. You got the left-hander throwing curveballs and fastballs. What do you got?
Okay, I'm just gonna throw a softball here, okay? Because I'm still just not clear,
Change up.
not
Change up.
not
Go
clear
ahead.
about certain things. But so just so I understand, so after you got out of the Air Force and you did your police work at some point, when is that when you went to do the police work after you got out of the Air Force? Or is that something in the 20s, teens or 2000s that you were doing that? Just trying to fill that gap between there and then you going to work for Put Off. And did you do anything, that you were interested in teaching, or just what were your interests in teaching? Because I know that was something you said last time, but I didn't know what you were trying to do with that. Anyway, that's it.
I'm not really
Rick,
sure.
you want to
1920s. I
you,
said in
you want to tell them about the time that you were in the secret
1920s.
space program, Rick?
Yeah, right.
You gonna
19. I got out of U.S. intelligence in 1988, and I had 20 years of combined federal service because I'd was in the National Guard and Air Force Reserves. Anyways, I had combined federal service. When I got out of government service, that's when I went to the New Mexico State Police Academy in 1988. So I don't know where you got those other dates from. And then in 1994, I went to work for Dr. Putoff. I just had a bachelor's degree. In order to teach any place, you had to have at least a master's. And during my time with Dr. Putoff, I got a master's. And I taught part-time at a couple of different places. And then when in 2015, I taught at the Defense Continuing Education Program, and then eventually in my private, I do private teaching, tutoring now, in all the math. I teach mathematics. I don't teach. Well, somebody just posted something a while back that I lecture in UFO studies. I don't know where they got that from. I did a lecture once at the University of New Mexico, but it was just a one-time thing. No credits given. But my I teach math, advanced math, algebra up to theory, probability, or combination permutations. That's what I teach.
Okay, so all right. I just misspoke with the dates or something. So in 88 you got out and then you did the police work till the about 94 or something with then Put Off. And you got your master's and now you taught the math.
Okay, hold on,
Yeah.
VC. Before you
Yeah.
continue, VC,
Yeah.
what was your math? I just want to know what was your master's in. Can you share that with us?
Well, as everybody knows, there's a past with me where I got yeah.
Oh, everybody doesn't know because I don't
Well,
know, and I'm part of
well,
everybody.
well,
So
uh,
just get to the point.
well, I would have to point to a space about that. I think Grider did a space recently where that was brought up. Yeah.
But just answer the fucking
Well,
question. What's your master's in, pal?
well, there's a reason why I don't discuss things about that, but I will say that I did do some.
Okay, he's been removed. This is a open discussion about facts. This is not an interrogation by some jack off that wants to make a point that's already been made like 3 years ago. All right, so
Oh,
who's
great. We're
next?
gonna hear
Red,
about this for
what
like
do you
two
got, Red?
days now, Eric. Thanks.
Well,
No,
yeah,
we're not.
I gave him a shot. He hit into a double play. He just ran bases loaded double play. The team's out of the game. It's like 8-0, and he's down right now. He just needs to go take a shower and whatever. Who's next?
I mean,
Rick,
I
is
can give him
anyone
a
in
shot
your
if
working
he
group going to be in these upcoming hearings? I think there's like 2 scheduled even for this month.
You there, Rick? I didn't mean to disturb
I
the
didn't.
rhythm.
Somebody talking. I didn't hear anything. I didn't
Yeah,
hear
sorry.
that.
Yeah, Red had a
Are
question.
you or anyone in your working group involved in with any of these hearings coming up? There's two, I think, per Luna.
Yeah, no, not that I know of. We support whistleblowers who we want to testify, the real live hands-on whistleblowers who have never been identified yet. We want them to speak in front of Congress. We're more on the Senate side than the House side. So I don't really follow this House hearings that much. The Senate the Senate is going to have a committee meeting on May 14th in a skiff, and they're going to talk about future meetings. Thune from the majority leader of the Senate finally
Hey, Rick,
agreed
what do
on
you
it.
think of Danny Sheehan? Do you think he's good or bad for the space?
100%, 100%. Danny's good. Yeah.
Good or bad? Good.
No, he's 100% good. Yeah, absolutely. I've known Danny a long time. I've been on panels with Danny. I've had long conversations with him. He's the real thing.
He's sharp as a tack. I mean, the
He
guy's,
sure is.
quite the career too, for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I put him in my top 5 for sure, I'd say.
Oh, yes, at least.
Yeah, I mean, could be top 3 even, but for sure top 5 without even thinking about it.
Do you think the Jesse Michaels and the Area 52 and that this whole thing is a good thing or bad thing for overall for this space? I mean, it's definitely making a good difference. I think it's making a lot of people more aware, but it's also stirring up more controversy in terms of what's out there, who's fake, who's not. I mean, I think it's a good thing personally, in my opinion. More eyes on it, but it gets people to think more crazy things. However, I do,
Well, I think there's some danger in that okay, this is my opinion, and Rick can say what he wants, but when you start, for whatever reason, if a person starts leaning on other people's opinions and they're convincing, doesn't mean they're real or true or whatever, but they're convincing, and that becomes part of a reality that a person might use as a base of, let's say, fact. That's when the problems start to come. So, um, you know, you need a history with these people. You need information that they've shared in the past that's verifiable, that can lead up to a point of trust where you can. I mean, I just people try to put the puzzle together.
they want to be molded.
Sometimes
They
these
want to
pieces,
believe, man. That's what it
yeah,
is.
but the pieces don't always fit. But we
No,
want to fit them together. Go ahead, Rick.
No, I agree. I agree that everyone wants disclosure, and in their own way. I think it's going to be a consensus of how disclosure is going to end up. I don't see um, a massive disclosure by the government in the very near future. I think the government is going to allow the whistleblowers to talk and give their story, and then at some point the government might acknowledge some of the facts being correct. Because if the government wanted everything released, they would have done it back in 2017. There was actually a program, and I talked about this before. Actually, I did a whole lecture on it some years ago with Harry Reid and what when he was the Senate Majority Leader, one of his aides, who was a former Air Force intelligence officer, wrote up a disclosure proclamation, and I think that would have been the best thing that the government could have done. It would have been sanctioned. It would have had to been sanctioned by the executive branch, and that just never happened. I don't know where that proclamation ever went. If it's in Harry Reid's library there in Vegas or where, I don't know. But I would love to get my hands on it. I've tried to ask people to see what was in it. But that would have been the best way to do it. But of course, it never happened. So it's just a dilemma. How we're going to get the information out there, or who's going to get it and who's going to verify it. As I always said, that disclosure has already happened. It's out there. The government the executive branch just has to acknowledge it.
Is the Star of Regulus going to come down the pyramids next Easter, and Bledsoe's just going to come out and
Okay, not to be rude, gentlemen, but Logan had his hand up, so we don't want to cut off the hands. Go ahead, Logan.
Oh, thanks. Yep. Just then you said that if the government wanted to do disclosure or whatever, that they would have or whatnot, right? But when you say the government, I was going to be like ask you, like, you can be more specific, because I know that like Congress doesn't all know like with everything that's been going on with like the defense contractors and what they've been up to, because I mean, how would they? I guess they probably just heard rumors from various whistleblowers, maybe, right? I don't think they've yet to see any hard evidence. I mean, they said so at the hearing that they haven't seen any of the claims substantiated, right? Anyway, how do we go about getting past these contractors, which have a they're legally able to just lie to Congress, saying that like that's this or that's not true about whatever it is the whistleblowers are telling them, right? How do we get past that wall, I guess, is the question.
That's a good question, Logan. And let me just say this: Logan is a friend of mine. I love him in spaces. I love to be in his spaces, and he's he's the number one person on my list. So he's always welcome to come up and be a speaker or even a co-host when I need it, or when I'm in the. He always treats me very well when I go into his space. So to answer your question, the executive branch is controlling all the intelligence within our government. So a disclosure would have to come from the executive branch. The president probably would have to come out and say, yeah, you know what? Everything you've heard about that UFOs are true, or something to that effect. Now, as far as the contractors, that's a sticky point, and that's an excellent question, because the contractors, number one, they're exempt from FOIA, so you can't get FOIA information from contractors. Number two, there are some scheming contractors out there who are taking money from the government and doing things that they're not supposed to do. Let me explain this. DARPA gives contracts to companies. So, and we'll just for the sake of argument or discussing who, we'll say Raytheon. Raytheon has the ability to do certain things within the realm of research and development. So there is such a thing as sole source contracts. There's a law that covers sole source contracts, meaning the government doesn't have to give bids. They can go out and say, okay, Raytheon, because you have the ability to make these widgets, we want you to have this contract. So they negotiate a contract with DARPA, and then it's implemented, and now Raytheon's making billions of dollars. But what contractors do, which Harry Reid found out about, is they skim money off the top of the payments. They take that money, they put it in a pot over here, and they do their own research and development, which is against the law. But they do it. And what does DARPA do? Nothing. They turn their head. They turn their head the other way. And that is why we can go after the contractors. And that's really the only way we can, is when they skim money off the top of a contract and use it for their own research and development. That's against the law. They can't do that. That's a fraud against the government. And there's only one contractor that's ever been held responsible, and that was Grumman, and that was in 1999, where they were caught doing it, and they were prosecuted. They were sued by the government. Nobody went to jail, but Grumman had to pay a huge fine, and they lost government. They couldn't bid on a good contract for 2 or 3 or 5 years, something like that. That's how it goes, and that's what Harry Reid found, and that's what Harry Reid wanted to stop. But there's so much kickbacks to Congress, congressmen and senators, and even probably the president and members of the intelligence community that you'll never see that. But that's the problem we have right now with the contractors.
Hold on a second there. Do you believe, or have you heard that actual presidents would get a kickback in the sense that they just kind of look the other way? I mean, I'm not saying that's what you said, but can you elaborate on that?
Well, there's rumors that some presidents, Bush 2 in 2003, he got some campaign money for the 2004 for a second term from a contractor, and they're limited. But that's the rumor. I don't know if it happened. Same way with Obama, and I'm sure. I don't know about Trump, but I think Biden there was rumors that he got some too. But I wouldn't doubt it. If you look at, and there's a list, you can go online and look at which U.S. contractors contribute to members of Congress. You can Google it. You can see how much money that Lockheed, L3 Harris, Raytheon, Boeing, and these other companies are giving to members of Congress. That's disgusting, and that's why Congress doesn't want to spill the beans about what the contractors are doing.
Bro, like I was remember Jimmy Carter? He had his own
That
UFO
makes sense.
sighting.
Go ahead,
Remember back
Logan.
in like the 70s, and Bush was the head of the CIA back then, and Carter was like he wanted to get some answers, and Bush was just like, "You don't have a need to know." To like the president himself didn't have a need to know, right? And that's just how it ended.
Absolutely, because I know the security advisor. He's a member of the Advanced Working Group. He tells that story. He tells that story that Carter wanted to know everything, and just before Bush left and Stansfield Turner came in for the CIA, Bush told Carter, "It's never going to happen. You don't have a need to know. No president ever had a need to know, and we're not going to start with you." Although Carter suspected that Nixon knew, and Nixon had been briefed, and he had reasons to believe that. But then Carter didn't. Carter said, "Okay, okay, I don't want to know that." Now Carter, remember, he was in the Navy. He was a nuclear submarine in the Navy, so he had a little bit of knowledge about the subject. But yeah, you're right, Logan. You're absolutely right. Good question. That's
Hey, Logan, you fucking triple and a double off the top of the wall for Logan. We got a Grider hand up though. You got a home run for us, Grider, or are you going to go off the wall? What are you going to do?
Off the wall.
Yeah, sorry, I was away from my computer. I came back in at the very end of Rick answering. But as far as just something to add in, I'm an editor. Like I've been working as an editor. It's not anything. It's not like you just apply for it, then you can do it. But it's a site called littlesis.org, Little Sis, and I put the link up in the nest, and I'm the only one on there that's like inputting anything to do with UAP. Like I added like all the UFO related, UAP related, like the Disclosure Fund, Soul Foundation, and all that. But it's basically a database for mind mapping the way that money and power kind of moves through politics. And there's a ton of information on defense contractors, as far as like seeing how like Lockheed, seeing who they've donated to and all that. It's political contributions. It's a great tool to kind of build like a visualization of the way that influence is welded, by these contracting companies or by any company really. You can get on there and you can research BlackRock if you want to. I mean, it's amazing the information, and I would love help. I mean, if there's anybody out there who likes doing this type of research and wants to help out, sign up as an editor and help me out with inputting all the UAP UFO related stuff. Yeah, but it's a great tool nonetheless. I mean, just go on there and type in Lockheed Martin in the database and search it and just see everything that they've got their hands in, all the subsidiaries, like all the campaign contributions, all the former Lockheed Martin directors and executives that like went on to run for some type of political office. I mean, it's really amazing, just how far that money goes from the contractors, like how deep it goes. So yeah, it's just I just wanted to add that on. I guess that would be off the wall, right? That'd be like a rebound.
I'm gonna give you a single. You probably just popped it over the second baseman's head with that one. It dropped in, but you're on safe.
Hey,
You're on safe.
Grider, I really appreciate that information on the 29 palms identified flare up. Obviously, that all that stats that you did, great research, really great. Just look.
Thanks,
Yeah,
sir.
I'm gonna give
Thank
a
you.
triple on that one. We'll go. You think triple? Is that worth the triple on that?
No,
On that?
yeah, that's a home run right there.
Home run! Holy shit! In the park home run by Grider.
Look at
Holy
all
shit!
that work he
You.
did.
But
Yeah, that's
I just want to
amazing.
say that really, it had been debunked long before I came along. And Mick West had done a lot of work that I wasn't aware of. That like I made sure when I started, like, because I did a debate. That was what all my research kind of led to. Is it was a debate with somebody in the community that believed that it was a real sighting, and
And they
so
still
like
maintain that.
but John Greenwald is the one who did the FOIA request that, got back all the documents and the photos and everything. All those documents that I went through and highlighted and then I kind of analyzed, like those all came from Greenwald. So thank you, John Greenwald. And but yeah, it was thoroughly debunked. What I really, am proud about is like the debate. Like I think there should be more debates in ufology. I think it's a great way for people to learn about these cases. It's a great way to kind of share research. I think it's debates are amazing, and also the fact that finding that that where that witness had gone on a podcast that had like 4 views by the time that I came along and viewed it, basically an overlooked podcast, and just had kind of ratted Corbell out for his insidious practices. But yeah, but thank you, yeah, thanks for the compliment. I appreciate it.
All right,
Welcome.
Grider. Enough. All right, go ahead and hit the showers, son.
Yeah. No, good job. Good job. Yeah, it was excellent.
All right, I have one question, and it's about spirituality. And Rick, so like, do you feel like it's the demon angel thing is real, or do you think it's kind of like this made up kind of facade that people are putting on? Like, what's your perspective after these years?
No, I have information, a lot of information that I had access to back in the 70s and 80s that could prove that these extraterrestrials are in fact extraterrestrial species coming from different planets. They have different biologics. They have different technologies. They come from entirely different star systems, and so they're not coming from uh, the spiritual world or hell or heaven
From Zeta
or
Reticuli or something.
yeah, they're coming from star groups. And now there is a possibility, and Dr. Putoff wrote a paper about this in 2022, that if a civilization, a species, has to travel 50 light years or 100 light or whatever, long distance, and come here to visit or explore our planet or have some mission here, rather than traveling back and forth, they might be able to, because they're so advanced, or thousands or maybe millions of years more advanced than we are, they can live in another dimension. So they are dimensional travelers, transdimensional. They can come here and visit us, interface with us in this dimension, and then go into another dimension and sleep or hibernate or whatever. I think that's a possibility, but I haven't seen any evidence that I have seen, at least me. This is just my interpretation of it. That we're dealing with alien or demons or the devil or angels. Now, I have to clarify this because several years ago, I had the opportunity of going to Honduras and watching a exorcism, and I was there. The whole exorcism lasted 77 hours. Obviously, I wasn't at the whole 77 hours, but I was there periodically during that time period, and I saw things that I could not explain. And I'm a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. I believe in Catholicism. I was an older boy. I even spent a year in a monastery. So I'm religious. But some of the things that this 11-year-old girl experienced or displayed was unbelievable and unexplainable. So I can't explain that. I don't know. I would say what happened there involved demons. It didn't have anything to do with extraterrestrials. I think we have apples and oranges in that the case.
You said Ebens, so you think extraterrestrial biological entities, is that them? Like they might be demonic in nature, not necessarily demons, but like doing demon stuff, or no?
No. I didn't say Ebens. No.
Oh, okay, my
I
bad.
said that no, absolutely not. I saw demons. Was you have to be there, but there are things that this little girl did or said, and there was auras that were appearing that we knew. I mean, we're in a residence. It was a Doty residence that just barely had running water and electricity. Didn't have hot water, just had cold water. There wasn't anything planted in there. The cameras and the microphones we put in there to record it. So we didn't have any visual or special effects in there. And we saw things that I think was in fact demons and not anything to do with extraterrestrials.
Oh my gosh, that must have been nerve-wracking. Like, what did you have there for like protection from that? Like, what type of defense do you have for that? Obviously, like religious things, like you might, I don't know, I pictured like having the cross and the holy water, but like, like, how do you defend against that? Holy shit.
Well, we weren't so worried because we were more or less spectators. It were the two priests, adding up actually four priests, but initially it started with two priests. They had the Roman ritual for exorcism. They had the crucifixes. They had the holy water, and we were just observers. But we um, I wore a St. Christopher's cross, and I was I had a cross on me. We were never directly threatened. The only ones that were directly threatened were the priests and her father, the little girl's father. He actually suffered a heart attack, but after it was over with, and so there were. And then we were, of course, worried about the health of the girl, but some of the things it just you had to be there and experience it and understand it, and then you can't understand it because you're seeing things like this little girl knew Honduras. They speak Spanish, and she knew Spanish. She's 11 years old. She went to school. She never had any training or teaching in English, Chinese, Aramaic, Romanian, Greek. These were all the languages that she was speaking. She had no knowledge of any of that. And she was speaking not in a conversational Chinese or Romanian. She was speaking full detailed sentences that you would have to be a linguist to understand or to be able to speak it. And now, of course, during the exorcism, we didn't know what these. Well, we knew some. I mean, I spoke Spanish, so I knew what the Spanish, and I also learned German in the military, so I could speak German, but and a little bit of Russian I learned, so I could detect some languages, but some of the other languages, even the priests who were fluent in Greek, and one was knew knowledge of Aramaic. Uh, but they didn't know these other languages until they sat down and listened to the tape recordings with another linguist. They actually had to send these tapes out to other linguistic colleges to understand what she was saying. But they all came back saying, well, this is Romanian, that's Greek, that's Russian, that's German, that's Italian, and there were other languages. I think
Was
there
it
was
the same
15.
message for all languages, or was it like
No,
specific
no.
messages for each language?
She would or the demon would trick the priests into saying things in other languages, and of course the priests only knew the Greek and the Spanish, uh, and so they didn't know what she was saying in these other languages until after, of course, the exorcism was over with.
Yeah, but Rick,
When
do you
they
think
had
they're connected at all with, UAP and the demon stuff? Like, do you think there's any connection? Like nothing?
No, I don't. I don't believe there's any connection whatsoever. I don't. Now others do, and other can justify their statements and their reasoning behind it, but I can't. I think that we're talking apples and oranges. The demons are the ones that possess people for a particular religious reason. I don't believe it has anything to do with extraterrestrials. That again, that's my thought. Now,
Makes the world a lot more interesting, doesn't it?
yeah, I know it does.
Do you think there's people that work with these forces somewhere in the world? Or are they kinda like above human interaction? Like, they probably just use humans more than work, quote, unquote, "work with humans." It's like, "No, demons be using you, bro." But, yeah, I'm curious, like, I don't know. Do you think that exists somewhere?
Would find it difficult to believe because if a extraterrestrial race is so
Me too, I feel
more
like the
advanced,
demons would just end up killing you. Just kill you.
yeah, really, it really, really.
What about angelic? Have you ever had, like, an angelic experience where you feel like there might have been an angel there?
I think I believe in guardian angels, and yeah, I was in and this was when I was in a regular military. I was in a situation where um, I could have probably been hurt or killed, but something told me not to go to the left, and I didn't. I stayed to the right. If I had went to the left, it harmed some other people. So I think I don't know if you want to call it an angelic experience or just my guardian angel saying, "Stay right, Rick." I just think it's that. I don't know of any other uh, case.
It was your future self reaching back into the past, giving you advice, and you were listening to your own tuition, maybe.
You know what? You know what? Amazing you bring that up. God, it's just I got a chill when you said that because that's exactly what my late mother told me. My mother, who was very religious, seems to think that the guardian angel was really you from the past or from the future coming back. And amazing you said that. God, that sound like my mother. I mean, my mother. That's what my mother would say.
Well, I think it's a pretty
She
sound
has,
belief. Could be possible.
yeah, I do. You're maybe absolutely right. She passed away a few years ago, but that's what she believed.
That reminds me of this one theory I had this one time. You know those ghost boxes? I've never like to play with those kinds of things. I don't want to play around with the other side or whatever. But I decided to use it one time, and the message that it got said that God is watching you.
which is kind of like an eerie thing to get from like the other side, right? But I thought like, what if like that message was like me from like the other side saying that like you need to like watch that shit you do from like now on because God is watching you and like you don't want to be where I'm at right now or something like that, right? So if I was ever to go back in time to give myself a message, it would probably it'd be like in that moment when I have a ghost box saying that to myself, right? But yeah, maybe we do guardian angel ourselves or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting, Logan. That's wow, that is interesting. Yeah, something to think about.
Well, and then
Well, there's a lot about NDEs and different types of
like
experiences, right? That everyone
if we're really
has.
on a
So,
linear path.
me or
I'm sorry, Cave. Go ahead, jump in there. I was just rambling.
oh yeah, no, aren't we all? I mean, like, thanks again, Rick, for joining again and taking these good questions. I mean, like, I think we're all just kind of curious, like, with your perspective of the experience you've had, like, what are you taking away from it now that you kind of let us know, like, and I think the angels, demons stuff you answered thoroughly, right, and that just kind of comes straight down to like perspective, like through your life and kind of like what you've seen. So besides that, like, do you think disclosure is gonna ever happen? Like I'm 35. Like, am I just wasting my time, like paying attention to this, like trying to like show people more and more, or like, is that their goal to like just wear us out? Like that could be. What do you think?
Well, yeah, it could very well be. I don't.
There's no right answer,
Probably
right?
more complex than that, but I think that there are certain things that the government doesn't want us to know, and we'll never know. Okay, but there's certain things I think we can know about disclosure, about our contact with extraterrestrials, that we should know, and I don't see any reason why the government can't acknowledge it. Whether we'll get that in our lifetime, I certainly hope so. I'm 75, and so I certainly hope in my lifetime that I get that information. And I mean, I know what I know, but I don't know it all. I wish I knew it all. There's so many things that I had access to, but only bits and pieces of it that I've always tried over the years of putting all those bits and pieces together. And there's always a missing piece of the puzzle, so to speak, which I can't understand, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And so I wish I knew it all, but I don't. I never will. But I just wish that the government would come out and say, "Okay, here's disclosure, and give it to us, whatever they can, and would satisfy the majority of us." Of course, we would always want to know more.
Thank you.
Danielle.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, I kind of disagree and disbelieve demons and angels things because I've had religious parents myself and they abused me on regards of this topic. And hearing that you did exorcisms on 11-year-old kid took me back down memory lane where they tried to do that sort of thing to me. And it's a lot of it's a lot of bull. They did it because I had some abilities, and that poor kid must have had certain abilities as well. And you believed it was demons and stuff, and it's absolutely cruel that you let that kid go through that. And this is why I'm speaking out, because I do not want anybody else go through what I went through with my abusive earth parents. And I try and get over it, but me and my earth dad is dead now, but I've still got my earth mother, but we don't communicate anymore because of this thing. She still believes I'm like a demon spawn of some sort or something, a demon child or something like that, because of being conceived on the mothership. So honestly, I just wish this religious nonsense would just go away. That's how I feel, and it's interfering with my first contact things that I try and need to get people ready for.
Rick, to you?
Okay, thanks for that, Danielle.
That's a tough
But
one.
that exorcism, there's really a detailed investigation by the Catholic Church before any exorcism is done. It's not it takes literally months to get approval, and you have to get approval from a cardinal or an archbishop to do it. And we got down there after they already approved everything. And this little girl, she was a normal 11-year-old girl, but when she became possessed, she experienced demonic behavior, hurting people, trying to actually stab another girl in the head with a knife, and all these other horrible things. So, anyways, that's we certainly had nothing to do with the diagnosis of it. We just got down there to watch it. So, anyways, who else wanted to talk? Anybody? Okay, I think we're going to end it.
Actually, hold on, Rick. I
Yeah,
just have one
sure.
question. I don't know.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Dr. Doty, did you ask this question already? I brought this up a couple nights ago. It was about the remember what it was, Dr. Dolce? You still there? You said you were going to ask him about it, but I'm not sure if you did already. He might have gone to bed.
Dr. Dulce fell asleep on us for sure.
It's okay. So it was about when you were working like 40 years ago now, I guess. That's wild to think about, isn't it? But back in your intelligence days, do you remember what stories that you came and brought to the UFO community, and if those stories are still around today, that people are passing around?
Oh God, a lot of what I did or what other people have done that I worked with are recorded at Gaia, and the 178 episodes I've done for Gaia. I recorded all my experiences there, so it's all there now. There's obviously some I could never talk about, and I still can't talk about. I think 4. I have to check, but I think there's 4 special access programs that I was involved with, and they're still highly classified, so I can't talk about them. But I try to talk about everything I did during that time period, from 1978 or 77 on to 1988.
Sweet. Oh, actually, why not do one more thing about Serpo? You brought up that list of the Serpo people, right? Um,
Yes.
is there anything else, I guess, that's out there that maybe you know about that's not out there about Serpo, or like ways we can go about like adding like more meat to that story, I guess, and just kind of like making it solidified to like even better. You know what I mean?
Well, I sent out. I found a website that was getting ready to be closed, and I tried to actually buy it, and it was purchased by somebody else. But anyways, I managed to download everything on that site. It's an enormous amount of material pertaining to Serpo, and I'd be more than happy to share it with anybody. Just send me. Well, I have a email post, and you send me a request, and I'll send it email. It has to be emailed because it's a big file. I'd be more than happy to give whatever I have. Now, that's not everything, because Victor Martinez was the one that had the full database, and there were literally thousands and thousands of pages that he had. And I've asked him for if I could. I told him I'll pay for copying it. I'll pay for the postage. I'll even fly out to California and pick it up. And he's hesitant about sharing it with anybody. But I'll be more than happy to share everything I have with anyone.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to like do like a little maybe AI like video recreation of like that whole Serpo story from like their perspective or whatever. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, Doomer, what's up?
Hey, Rick and Eric, thank you for hosting the space. Rick, I really appreciate you coming to spaces a lot and speak. Recently, your friend Dr. Putoff was on the Joe Rogan show, and before that, he was also on a different interview show, I think, with Leslie Keane, and I think it was a Reddit Q&A, and he was asked whether he would reveal whether he would break his security oaths posthumously, like in a book that gets released after his death. And he said no, because he's a patriot, and even after death, he's still a patriot. But at another time, he also said that he would he would he would go to jail if he revealed, and it didn't sound like he was talking about breaking NDAs, if he revealed everything he knew. And so like when I hear that, it makes me wonder whether there's secrets he's keeping from you. So my question to you is, if Dr. Putoff knew about a close impending end of the world, would you feel betrayed if he was keeping that secret from you as a friend? And do you think that's the case?
Well, I certainly would. Excuse me, Dr. Putoff and I shared countless stories, and him being cleared and I being cleared. He's told me things that I never knew, and I told him things that he never knew. So I would, yeah, I would feel somewhat betrayed if he knew that there was going to be an end sometime in the near future. But we've talked about that, him and I, and he's never even hinted to it. Now maybe he knows, he obviously knows a lot more than I do, especially regarding technology, and he knows some very, 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 very dark secrets about the program that he's hinted to me. He never told me about him, but he's hinted to me that there's there's a troubling side to this phenomena that worries a lot of people. And so, and I don't really like to talk about it myself, whether it's a grim ending or some other thing that's going to happen that is going to surprise us. I don't know. I wish I did, but
But
to
it's
answer your
the only
question, I would be.
story. It's the only story at this point that makes sense for the endless, procrastination of even controlled disclosure. Do you think that's what's happening right now? That we're facing a doom sooner than people think?
Wow, highly possible. I've had discussions with other people about that exact same subject. And I think the consensus is that it very well could be something that's going to happen between September of this year and August of 2027. That's the time period, and I strongly believe in those dates. I do personally. Other people can think whatever they want to, because that information comes from a very, very reliable source who probably would know a lot more about it than I would. So and I've mentioned this before on spaces and lectures, that the dates that I heard is September 2025 and August of 2027.
And this source of yours, they told you directly?
They told us. There was a group of people they told.
And how do you think about, I mean, it's very interesting considering you're a probability teacher. How do you think about, negotiating this ambiguity and how you might be living the rest of your life and how you talk to other people, hypothetically speaking?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always look at things, not just because I've taken theory of probability courses and things, and I teach it, and there's different theories within the teaching realm of the theory of probability that deals in this. It could deal with this, and I put it on paper. And now I'm not saying, and he never told us it was 100% guaranteed that the end of the world is going to happen. He didn't tell us what's going to happen. He just told us that it's his genuine belief that something is going to happen between September 2025 and August of 2027. He didn't tell us why he knew, although knowing what his position was, somebody above him told him, I think. And the question we have, and of course, being the teacher of the probability, what's your is this 100%? And he said nothing's 100%. So you got to take it from there, and we couldn't get it out of him. And I think he might know a little bit more. He probably knows something's going to happen. Now, whether it's the end of the earth or whether it's the appearance of extraterrestrials, or which is going to be a dilemma that automatically discloses what we know about extraterrestrials, because that if they show up, that's disclosure right there.
Right. But we can infer based on government's actions that if there was a government expectation of an alien reveal that was, sorry, I had somebody call it. We can infer if there was a government expected reveal of by NHI in 2 years, we would be getting all the brochures 5 years ago at this point. Right. Like,
That's good. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you
I
would
think we're
think.
so close right now. You know what I'm saying? The
Yeah,
last
I
question I want.
understand.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, Rick.
No. I understand. I understand what you're saying, but yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
The last question I have relates to this. Neumann. There's stories that John von Neumann had extraterrestrial contact with sentient plasma and was conveyed a language to reinterpret time, and that the arrival story that you told us was based on actual NHI contact. What do you know about von Neumann and him making contact with sentient plasma, and maybe even being given the language of game theory to negotiate the dropping of the atomic bombs, both in terms of game theory and in terms of us needing permission so that those bombs would even detonate?
I only know what basically what you just told me. I've heard it from other people, but I've never delved into that, so I don't know anything other than basically what you just said.
But is it that instance when you told us, because you revealed in Spaces that Arrival was based on an alien giving a human a language that changed their relationship to time?
Right. Yeah. One particular species has done that. I don't know the full context of that, but one particular species has. Now, if that's the particular species that is going to be responsible for the event, and the people that would know, or this one particular person who was former director of Central Intelligence that's telling us this, calls it the event. That's his words, not mine. He says the event is going to happen between September of 2025 and August of 2027. This is what he said, the event. Now, that's it. We don't know what the event is. I wish I did. If I ever find out, I certainly would tell people. Now, is it catastrophic? I don't know. I can imagine that maybe based on what you said earlier, that this particular species that's given us this time formula or time system is maybe they're going to demonstrate that. Now, I wish I could say that came from me, but it came from somebody that I know very well who's a scientist, not Dr. Putoff, somebody else that's younger, a lot younger than Hal, and a very brilliant scientist who I deal with a lot. A very, very sharp guy. He seems to think that the extraterrestrials are going to demonstrate something to us then in between that time frame, and it's going to deal with time and how they're going to demonstrate something to us that we have no idea of, or we don't know. We don't use time that way, but they're going to demonstrate it in some manner. That's his theory. Now, whether he's right or not,
Did he say
has
why he
not.
thought that? Did he say
Well,
why he's not?
he bases on a lot of things, gestures, formulas, and things that he's created, ideas that he talks to other scientists about. Now, this particular scientist doesn't have the great deal of knowledge about the subject of UFOs. He has been involved in a program with Raytheon dealing with one small aspect of metamaterial that came from a crashed UFO back in, it was found back in 1968. And we had it, I guess, in a hangar because we didn't understand in it. And then he was on that program for the U.S. Air Force Scientific Research Center. And so that's what he kind of formulates it. And he's a very sharp, smart guy. And of course, there's a lot of theories out there. And Danny Sheen has his own theory, and which is more godlike. And I'll let him talk about that. I'm not going to steal any of his thunder, but so people develop theories based on what they think is going to happen and based on what knowledge they have. And I just wish I knew more.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay,
Why is it such a big
Ocean.
breadth of
Oh, go ahead,
it's
Logan.
between 2
No,
years, right? That the whole thing that they predict, you like between that 2 year period. But why is it so what's such a wide margin, do you think?
That's when they're flexing on us, bro.
yeah, I think it's going to be a gradual implementation of something that's going to demonstrate to us what the extraterrestrials can do. And that's my theory, that they're going to, because it's in their time period, it might not be what our time period is, because that's one thing we've learned, and I can actually come out and tell you that's one thing we've learned from one species of extraterrestrials. They don't look at time the same way we do. It's entirely different. And because of a lot of different things, how they travel, how they account for time, all sorts of things. So it's different. And so I think that something's going to happen that gradually influxes their time with our time. And this is just me talking. I don't have any justification or any axioms or anything to prove that, but I just think that it's going to be because of the, and it's a good point you brought up, because of the period of time from September 2025 to August 2027, 2 years, almost 2 years, 23 months. Why would it be that time period if it's just going to be an event that happens on July 2nd, 2027? Why just say it's going to happen on that date. But I think it's more complicated than that.
I had a theory that it might have to do with the whole 70 to 75-year wait for releasing of documents. Like, I thought maybe like the date 2027 correlates with something that happened back in, what was it, 57? And when I looked it up, there was a UFO flap to 70 to 75 years ago with the date of 2027. So maybe like disclosure comes, it's going to be catastrophic because documents are finally going to be released that are going to have information about that. So that was kind of like my theory. But I did raise my hand because I saw your post about that executive order, the one about like online like psyops and stuff like that. So I was curious because you mentioned an amendment that had happened. So I was curious about that amendment and like what that means to you, like what the executive order means to you, and like have you seen that type of stuff going on, whether like in your previous life or here online type of stuff, right?
Yeah, the amendment occurred during the Patriot Act after 9/11. That just gave more power to the intelligence community, and that's what I was talking about. But the Executive Order 12333 just dictates, and this is 81. Just dictates what intelligence agencies can do. The CIA limited, but it doesn't affect counterintelligence operations. And as I explained earlier, I mean, I probably spent 20 minutes earlier explaining all this, but that there's two different types of operations within the counterintelligence arena. One is a criminal investigation, such as espionage, sabotage, treason. That is a counterintelligence operation, but you have to provide probable cause. You have to get warrants from a federal judge, or a FISA judge, even if it's a covert or clandestine warrant. The FISA, I mean, where they allow you to break into a house and plant bugs. You only have 30 days to report that. You have to go in and take those bugs out within 30 days. And then you have a certain time period where you have to inform the target or the person, the house that you owned, the person that you were targeting. Now, if you're dealing with just a pure counterintelligence operation, you don't have to do any of those things. And also, the criminal counterintelligence operations has to be an offense governed under Title 18 of the United States Code, or the Atomic Energy Act. There has to be an offense. Now, if you're just doing a counterintelligence operation where you're gathering intelligence, you don't have to do any of those things. You have to get a warrant through the FISA court to do bug the house or something, but you don't have to tell it. You don't have to tell the owner of that house that you put a bug in there. But all the information you gather in that type of counterintelligence operation can never be used against the target. It's just for gathering intelligence. Now, there are some loopholes. If you are in a counterintelligence operation, you have a bug in a house, and you find out this guy just murdered his wife, and you have it on camera, obviously that changes things. But just the pure collection of intelligence doesn't require the warrants and things you have to do for a criminal case, because you can never charge the person. The person can never be charged with an offense.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that answers my question. I see Paranormal has their hand up. I also had a theory too that like maybe some influence campaigns might have been done by contractors, and so their way of implementing that could have been, I don't know, dicey or questionable, but that would be like again at like a third party acting, so it wouldn't be like necessarily directly tied to the government, although they probably would have like a connection to the government. But again, then you're going into the uncharted waters of private contracts or whatever. But go ahead, Paranormal. I see your hands up.
Hey, Rick. Earlier, you mentioned that you're of the Catholic faith, and I was wondering if you have any knowledge that the Vatican or perhaps the Jesuits do any investigative research or scientific research on the existence of extraterrestrials.
Yes, the Vatican commissioned privately commissioned, and this leaked out in the Italian press years ago. But in the 70s, I can't remember which pope it was, formed a commission to investigate the phenomena. And this was in the middle 70s. I don't recall the exact time. And this commission was made up of mostly Catholic priests with some expertise in the area. They all were trained by the Vatican. And they all also included 2 Swiss intelligence officers. Remember the Swiss guard, they guard the Pope, they guard the Vatican. These 2 Swiss intelligence officers were actually the key players in this. And they did really, I guess, thorough investigation, traveling all over the world collecting data on the subject. And they, I guess, had cooperation. I guess, I don't know for a fact, but I think, pretty sure they had cooperation with the CIA to get information that the CIA had buried in the basement of the CIA headquarters. So yes, they were interested. They did do an investigation. Danny Sheen briefly talked about this, and I don't know what their final findings were. I'm sure they're locked away in the Vatican archives. But yeah, they did do at least that one investigation, maybe others, but I know of just that one.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, Danielle, good.
About that 11-year-old, did you have any evidence that she was abused by her parents, and this whole exorcism is part of the abuse?
Not that I know of. But again, we went down there after the full investigation was done by the priests down there and the local police. I don't think she was, but then again, I didn't know every fact about the case. We were just down there to witness the exorcism, so
So you
I
weren't
couldn't.
involved personally with it?
No, we got down there the day before the exorcism. We were briefed on it, and then the next morning, early after they had a mass at the house, and then right after the mass, they started the exorcism. I say like 7 in the morning, and we were there periodically during the 77 hours. We obviously weren't there during the entire 77 hours, but that's all our involvement was.
At the end of it, was the demon gone? Like, was she healed and better, hopefully?
Yes, absolutely. She was fully cleansed. She went on to become a nun. She's now teaching nun in a convent in Tegucigalpa, Honduras.
And are you aware as well of possible first contact event coming soon?
2027. They're flexing on us.
Only what I just have said for the last 40 minutes.
Yeah, but do you know that there's a counter, a possible false first contact event just to push the ETs are bad narrative kind of
Like
thing?
blue beam. Is the blue beam gonna happen?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Because that seems to be linked with the Bledsoe thing.
Yeah, I'll let him take the glory for that. I don't know I don't know anything about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, UFO intro.
Hey, Rick. I wanted to know whether it's a body or a craft. Do you have firsthand knowledge of the extraterrestrial presence?
Let's say that again.
I was wondering if you had firsthand knowledge of extraterrestrials, whether it's a body or a craft.
I've seen. No, I don't have any first hand. I've never had an experience. I've never had an incident other than the one at Urania, and I can't guarantee that was an extraterrestrial. I don't have. I've seen crafts flown inside Nellis Test and Training Range that were in fact extraterrestrial reverse engineered crafts. I seen a extraterrestrial on a closed circuit camera, but that's it.
Thank you.
I do remember you telling that story where you went into the room and you saw the camera on the screen and no one really
Yeah,
explained it to you, like in the moment, and then after, weren't you just kind of told not you? Yeah, you didn't see that or whatever.
right.
I mean, what's considered first person
Okay.
like evidence anyway? Would that? I mean, if you saw like the camera on like a closed circuit like a camera, right? Is that not considered that?
Well, technically it would be, and I say that, and people say, "Well, you didn't see him up close," so I'm careful to say, "No, I saw it on a closed circuit camera. I know it was a closed circuit camera. It wasn't a videotape; it was a closed circuit camera." And so, yeah, I would say so, but then people argue and say, "Oh, you didn't see it up close," and you know how skeptics are.
Hey
Okay,
Rick, how you doing? How you
Freeman,
doing,
yeah, go
Rick?
ahead.
It's
Go ahead. Good, good,
I
good.
I, I appreciate it. Question I have, I've never heard you comment on this, and this is probably my own failings. What do you know about remote viewing, and the Monroe Institute, and particularly McGonagall? I know that you were close to SRI, and I'm sure you've commented on this before. I just haven't heard it firsthand. If you know anything about that, I know that you're close to some of the guys at SRI that were close to that. So I
Well,
also
Dr.
have a follow
Putoff,
up question.
I worked
Uh,
for Dr. Putoff, so I had countless conversations in the 13 years I worked for Dr. Putoff about the subject of remote viewing, both unclassified and classified. I've watched remote viewers remote view at various locations in Texas at the Institute for
where
Advanced
in
Studies and
Texas?
at the Institute
San
in
Antonio?
Austin. No, in Austin,
Oh, in Austin.
where
Okay.
Dr. Putoff's lab is. But he has a facility at an offsite facility too. But I've seen remote viewers remote view uh, things that just fascinated me. I was never during my intelligence days. I knew that something existed, but I didn't know exactly what it was. In fact, when I was in Germany once, we had to go someplace. We had to drive a Volkswagen Bug to a location and put a box in the back seat with a watermelon in it. Now I didn't know. I didn't have any idea why we were doing that. And years later, I found that was a test of a remote viewer to see if he could locate the Volkswagen Bug and then whatever was in the box in the backseat. But that's really the closest I came to remote viewing and understanding what it was years later when I worked for Dr. Putoff. But it was used exclusively in within the intelligence community and operations. I think one of the most successful one was in 1979 when a U.S. Army general was kidnapped by Italian terrorists, and remote viewer uh, uh, remote viewed where he was, the exact location, the room, the closet that he was in, and Italian commandos went in there and recovered him. So I think that was really a remarkable remote viewing operation. And there's been others, and then there's been some failures. And Dr. Putoff would readily admit that it's not 100%.
Yeah, so this is the follow-up question. I'm sorry, Danielle, but the follow-up question is, did you know anything about McGonagall when you were doing that? And also, what how do you feel about the Monroe Institute as it stands today and its proclivity to bringing in veterans and I see individuals? Do you know anything about that? Or do you know who McGonagall is?
Is it Jeffrey McGonagall? I don't know. I feel like I made that
Yeah,
up.
McGonagall is he's a remote viewer that he's the remote viewer that remote viewed the
It's
sub
Joe, I think.
base. Joe McGonagall. There you go. He's kind of considered to be like the best living remote viewer from that. Rick, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I
And
know him very well. I know him very well, and he is one of the best. He's now is he the best? Well, I don't know. I wasn't in the program. Ed Dames was pretty good. I actually went to the Ed Dames School of Remote Viewing seminar on a weekend several years ago. Ed and I were real good friends, and he said, "Come to my seminar." I said, "Nah, I don't think I'd be very good at it," and I wasn't. I didn't flunk, but I didn't really. I couldn't do what others in that class did and was able to do. So I wasn't a good candidate for that. But um, yeah, Monaco is he was a very good one. And when they had a very difficult mission, they gave it to him. Pat Price before that, but of course Pat Price died before his time. But
Have you spoken to
that's
him
when
recently? Have you spoken to him recently?
Monaco. No, it's been a while. I don't know exactly when the last time I spoke with him.
Whenever Doty gets quiet, I always picture him flipping through his documents on his desk, being like, "Oh yes, there it is," triggering the memories.
I always wonder, like, how do you measure like how good of a remote viewer is? Like, I know Ingo Swann and all these guys are like pretty legendary in the field, but I don't know. How do we know that like Daz Smith down there, right? How do we know
Well,
that he's not the
they
best of all time? I don't know.
they 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 gauge it. They grade him on a number. I think there's 10 points of permissibility, they call it, where they uh, can only miss 2 or something like that. But they do grade them. Every single mission is graded and then critiqued, thoroughly critiqued afterwards. And but they rate it differently. It's a complex way of rating it. But if, say, for instance, you have a safe inside the Kremlin, and the safe is in section 4 of the Kremlin, and in this safe in filing cabinet, they want to know what is in the second drawer of the filing cabinet, the third file back. Okay, so if they find the safe in this whatever area they give them, and they can look in the safe, that's a grade. But they might not be able to read the document, or they might not be able to know what's there, primarily because they can't read Russian or something to that effect. So they can, and then there's part of it. This is, I don't think it's still classified, where they visualize something and they're able to like photographic memory of it, kind of, so to speak. It's more than that, but I can't explain it. And so that's a grade. Now, if they're able to find everything, get in there, then it's a successful mission. But very few remote viewing sessions is 100% accurate. Pat Price and Monaco are in like the 85 to 90% category. There's another remote viewer. She's a secretive one. She's a civilian. She was a school teacher, and there's a long story, and I'm not going to go into it, but she worked for the CIA as a remote viewer. She lives in Baltimore. She lived, and she still lives. She's still alive. She lives down in Florida now. She could remote view things that no one else could remote view, and her name's always been classified, and she would be right up there with Joe a month ago. I mean,
Her name's Betty,
they're
right?
pretty
Or
good.
Betty?
I'm not going to say who.
Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha. It was Betty. Clock it. Somebody write it down.
Did you remote view that, Dan?
Did you feel that?
It
Did
was
you
Betty
feel
White,
me?
wasn't it? Betty
It
White
was
was
I
the
Betty.
felt
viewer.
It
that
was
you I
fucking
felt
Betty.
you
Did you
remote
feel
view
that?
that.
Did you feel that? Good forward.
Yeah, Betty White, right? Yeah. It was Betty White. Okay.
No, I heard you. I heard your hesitation, Rick, and it was Betty. Betty, we hear you and we love you. What I want to know is what you feel about how do you actually Danielle, go ahead. Danielle.
Okay. What I was going to ask is, is the Rosicrucians and the Jesuits competing against each other? If they encounter something related to extraterrestrial, or do they work together with each other?
I wouldn't have any idea. I couldn't answer that question. You'd have to ask Danny Sheehan that. I have no idea.
Thank you.
All right, Rick. How do
The
you
gloves are
feel
coming
about
off, aren't they?
All right, Rick. How do you feel about the Monroe Institute?
I don't have any opinion one way or another on the Monroe Institute.
No, you're a damn liar, Rick. I need you to tell me. Tell me now.
I don't have any opinion on the Monroe Institute. There's
I do.
There are more people out there that can answer that question more
I can look.
enthusiastically
The
than I
institute. Yeah, the institute itself. I'm a little bit confused by the question. Are you actually asking about the institute or extraterrestrial life living below the core?
Jimmy, I'm asking Ricky. I'm asking Ricky Ticky here.
Okay, so you don't want. Okay, fine.
I'm asking Rick because I think Rick knows. He knows the players, and I think you do have an opinion, Rick. And I'm gonna. I'll wait. I'm a patient man. I'm a patient man.
Dan Friedman is a good one. He's a good one. But
So let me just ask you: do you not believe that there are Anunnaki living below the core?
maybe in the pyramids? Have you seen what they found under there?
Yeah, the pillars of light.
Those scans aren't accurate. There's way cooler shit than they picked up. I'll tell you that.
The previous civilizations built objects, of which the very tip is the pyramids, and it was used as a extraterrestrial power station to connect solar system traveling.
Ricky, what does Betty think about the Monroe Institute?
you have to
Dan.
ask her. You have to ask her that. I have no idea.
Someone get a Ouija board.
Yeah, get a Ouija board. Yeah. Okay.
Can I
What?
answer?
If I ever have to do an exorcist, I know who to call now.
Hey.
Like I know who you've been through one, so
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to. Those priests, I tell you what, they earned their money. Well, they weren't paid.
I'm gonna tell you what, Rick. I'm being serious now. I had a buddy. He was a forward observer, United States Army, and we grew up. I was raised on a military base. Had some crazy experiences growing up. And this guy, he went and he ended up at the Monroe Institute randomly, and then sent me a slide deck of photos of him at the Monroe Institute with McGonagall. And I thought it was crazy. I've shown a couple people this, a couple people I trust, and I thought it was weird.
It was
Okay. Let's one more question, and then we're gonna call it a night. So, Jimmy.
Yeah. So my question is twofold. One is, if the
Yes.
Anunnaki are able to converge with
The goddamn
multi-planet,
cover up.
what? I just want to ask,
Jimmy, is it true
if
or
the
not true? Did you
Anunnaki,
work for the OSS? Is that true, Jimmy?
who's the OSS?
Interesting.
Office of Strategic Services. No, I don't think you're that old.
I don't know what that means, but so I would like to ask you about the Anunnaki. So they were building space teleportation devices around the world, and the ancient Forerunner race were able to connect with our counterparts in the other dimension. So like many, I believe that there are two dimensions of the past and the future. Do you believe the Anunnaki are with us right now?
I don't. If they are, I don't know anything about it. I don't. They weren't included in the groups of extraterrestrials that I had been briefed on back in the late '70s. So I only know what I've read and what other people like yourself and
Let me
other
ask you another question
lecture.
very quickly. Do you believe that certain races in this world have been implanted by alien civilizations?
Yes.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay. That's gonna do it for the Doomer. Go ahead if you got a question.
We'll keep you all night,
Really,
Rick.
really quick, and thank you. The you know how there's some stuff you don't like to talk about, but if we only have like 2 years left, there's only so many more interviews with Artiki 166 we can have. What two questions? What can you reveal without breaking your security oaths that you normally don't like out? What can you give us that you haven't given yet? And then second question is, you must be aware of some avenues for disclosure that are like in plain sight, but people don't know that it's there. And if they weren't being tied down by security oaths, they could just do it. In other words, like what's the low hanging fruit for the dumb schmucks like me, that we could just run over the finish line. So like, can you give us something that you normally feel uncomfortable talking about that your security oaths aren't binding you from saying? And what is in front of our faces that nobody is monopolizing or capitalizing on?
Well, there's there's a lot of open source information out there about the subject that people can look for, and I don't have it right handy here, but there are things out there that will explain to the public that uh, that's been out there, like books and that the good legitimate books that have been written about the subject. Um, I don't have them right here handy, so I'll have to wait for the next one. But and one thing that I don't like to talk about is the connection between extraterrestrials and religion. Evil One, according to Linda Howell, talked about in 2,000 years before they placed the Ebens placed the humanoid on the planet. Now, a lot of people would connect that to being Jesus, and so that could create a lot of conspiracy theories about the fact that they even started the religion or started us believing, initiating a belief or something to that effect. And I just don't like to talk about that subject. I get a lot of questions about it, and I just don't like to answer them because, one way or the other, is that you're going to be against anything that would connect to whether you're a Catholic, a Protestant, a Christian, or a Muslim, or a Buddhist, or a Gnostic, or an atheist. So that's one thing I just don't like to discuss. Okay, it's about past my bedtime, so I
Rick, thank
appreciate all
you.
the questions.
Thank you,
Yeah,
man.
it's been a great space. We'll do this again sometime. Thanks. Dulcie had to hit the sack, but I really appreciate Logan coming in and Ocean and Doomer being and Grider. The guys are top notch, good questions. I don't normally run the space. Don't really have all my ducks lined up to do that, and I always like to see like Logan is coming in, who's the expert in this area. And so we'll do this
Well, you
again.
did a great job, Rick. You were an amazing host. You kept it respectful. I think Panda's giving sad faces. I think Panda has more questions for you. So definitely host another one not before too long, because we love it. And we kept you
I
so
will.
late. It's 1:30 in the morning here.
Yeah, thanks again, Rick.
But
I
Yeah,
I
it's
really
one
love
appreciate
it.
thirty.
whenever you have
And
spaces because, dude, who else does spaces, right? All these people that say they have answers, but none of them want to talk to the greater public. But you are so willing to do that and put yourself through it. When any questions asked, right? So I really always appreciate that about you, and I think everyone should. So yeah, thanks again.
it's brave, and it's a good example
Well,
for
thank
everyone
you,
else. Yeah.
Ocean Eyes and Logan. I really appreciate it. I really like your sites, Logan. I sometimes just go in and listen for a while, and I don't when you really have a good guest, I don't want to come in and show up, because then I don't want people to be distracted by me, because sometimes you have a good people that are asking some legitimate questions that I like to listen to. So I listen anonymously sometimes to your site. And so, but when I get a chance, I like to come on and speak, and you're always so gracious. And so I thank you very much. And yeah, we'll do it again. I guarantee you we'll do it again in the very near future.
Before the
And
Sounds
politics.
great.
I'll coordinate with you next time, Logan, so you could be the host, and
And
I'll
you
just be
have a
the
good
co-host.
sleep, Rick. And well, yeah, we'll
Okay.
talk to you later.
All right. All right. Good night, everyone. Have a good week.
Night, Rick. Jesus is an
Good night.
alien.